The first emperor who conquered the world got bored and started reading novels, when suddenly he woke up inside this novel, as the youngest prince doomed to die before the story even begins. Armed with the knowledge of every twist, betrayal, and hidden threat, he's determined to outplay the plot itself. Every ally is a potential traitor, and every choice rewrites the book's ending. Will he survive the chapters that were meant to kill him? Let's find out. The story begins in a quiet palace of the Empire of Agnes, where only the quiet creaking of doors and the steps of a servant who was walking to His Majesty were heard. On his desk there were many interesting things: swords, scrolls, books. The servant approached the emperor, who was reading a book, and putting sweets on the table, noticed that he again did not touch his food. Everyone is worried about his health, so he should at least eat something. He ignored her, reading every line in the book, and then said that it was all disgusting. The servant was very scared and asked him for forgiveness, saying that she would take everything away right away, but he calmed her down, saying that he was talking about the book, Chronicles of the Hero of Frozimar. He can't even imagine how such a disgusting book could get into the palace. She carefully asked what the book was about and what had upset him so much, and he told her that the author was telling the story of the Agnes Empire in the future, 100 years from now. Like in any other novel, a knight fights the Demon King, but in this case, the empire has already fallen and is in chaos. The people are blinded by selfishness, and none of them try to help this knight. In the end, the knight loses to the Demon King and dies a horrible death. Everything is very detailed, as if the author had seen this future with his own eyes. He threw the book on the table and declared that, however, his empire would never fall, so this book was not worth worrying about. But he couldn't believe that this simple story from a third-rate novel was stuck in his head. He felt sorry for his memory. He was silent for a few seconds, and then told the maid that this was a waste of time. He would take care of the food himself, and she could go. After that, she quietly left and closed the doors, and the hall was plunged into silence again. The emperor leaned his armrest and thought deeply. He remembered how the people of the empire were happy and jubilant for him, because he had finally united all the lands except the demon lands. The fairy kingdom in the west, the fishermen in the east, and the giants in the north were now with them. They called him by different names: the cold-blooded one, the conqueror, the emperor of the black star. Their loud, joyful cries echoed in his head, and when everything became quiet, he realized something. This was the end. He had nothing left to conquer, and nothing to strive for. He looked at the book and his crown, then closed his eyes and felt emptiness, and everything around him went dark. Deep in the night, an old knight named Frito was running through the dark corridors of the palace with the prince on his back, and worriedly wondered why there was no one here. He saw no guards or barriers against invaders. It was so quiet here that his running was the only thing that broke the silence. Why is no one protecting Prince Zion at all? He continued to run and thought that this could not be. Even if he was weak, even if he lost the battle for the throne, he was still the prince of the Agnes Empire. Even if his body can't take it, he is obliged to protect him at all costs. He almost reached the door when two assassins appeared in front of him. They immediately pounced on him, and one of them swung his weapon, but the knight managed to jump aside in time. The second assassin was approaching. He joined his partner, and the two swung their swords, but the old knight was not so simple and parried the blows. But the next attack was not long in coming. He was kicked in the chest, which caused him to be thrown back, and he broke through the door to another room with his body. He called them cowards, and the assassin rushed towards him, saying that he was just lucky that there was a door behind them. Another assassin joined them and told his companions that now he had nowhere to run. They must kill Prince Zion now. Frito sat the prince down near the wall and headed towards the enemies, telling His Highness to just wait. He did not care how many people came for him, but he would protect him. After that, he entered the fight. 3 enemies immediately pounced on him, but he held back each of their blows. When he came face to face with one of them, he asked who he was, but he only told him that he did not need to know. They were both going to die anyway. They began to press the old knight, and one of them asked, "Doesn't he think it is better to just die than to live his life in vain?" While the knight was busy, another enemy rushed towards the prince and said that he would be merciful and kill him with one blow. Hearing this, Frito became very worried about His Highness and told him to run. But what a pity. He had long been unconscious. The enemy blade was about to touch his chest, but suddenly froze a few centimeters away. The assassin exclaimed, why hadn't he killed him yet? He nervously answered him that he couldn't move, and at that very moment, the prince woke up and looked at his enemy, and black stars sparkled in his eyes. He carefully pushed his blade away from himself, after which he rose to his feet, and the assassin exclaimed in confusion, how was this even possible? He became very scared. He wanted to run away, but his body simply did not move. The prince's gaze was terrifying, and then his comrades joined the enemy and attacked the prince together. He used his ability called Black Star Fall, and streams of dark energy swirled around him, which in an instant finished off the assassins. Seeing this, Frito was shocked. He clearly did not expect this from His Highness. When the enemies were finished, the prince looked at his hand and said with a smile that it was interesting. The novel Chronicles of the Hero of Frozimar began with the death of several people. So weak-willed that he could not kill an ant with a body that barely allowed him to move, Prince Agnes, deprived of even a bit of power, naturally lost the battle for the throne and was imprisoned. The captured Prince Xian, a character who is even embarrassing to call such, was awarded only a few lines in the book. According to the plot, he was supposed to die during yesterday's attack, but he, the Emperor, found himself in his body a second before the blow. His power, the fall of the Black Star, affects not only the body, but also the soul. If not for it, he would have died, becoming another line of this novel. All his senses are heightened, so this is definitely not a dream. If he really is in the novel, then even though he survived yesterday's assassination attempt, he has little time. There are 3 years left until the end of this world. The hero tried to defeat the Demon King alone and lost. Then the Empire fell under the onslaught of demons. This is bad. He does not know how much time is left before he returns to his own body, and therefore he cannot let this world collapse before that happens. He must change the course of history. The war between humanity and demons will begin in 2 years. Before that happens, he needs to prevent civil strife. But with this frail prince body, it will be quite difficult. The fall of the Black Star is also greatly limited. For a weak secondary character, deprived of support and recognition, his plan is unfeasible. But at the thought of it, his heart began to beat faster. It was a feeling he had long forgotten. Fun. He has something to achieve here. Some time has passed since the assassination attempt. First, he decided to take care of his surroundings. He needs to find the one behind yesterday's attack. He went out into the corridor with Fredo and thought that, although he was forgotten, he was still a prince. He wonders how many people were brave enough to let the assassins into the palace. Judging by Fredo's reaction, this is not the first time. The guards that never showed up yesterday must be involved. He walked towards the 2 guards standing at the door, and they noticed him and hurried to stop him. He told them about his desire to go for a walk, but the guard said that it was already dark outside. He couldn't go any further. He asked if it was more dangerous there than inside. The guard answered him that in any case he couldn't go out. An order had been given. MC didn't like his words and asked who had given that order. After all, they were his guards. He waved his hand, taking the guy's life for insubordination, and his body fell to the floor with a crash. After that, he said that he had never given such an order and headed for the door, and the second guard recoiled in horror. Fredo wanted to stop His Highness, but he opened the doors and went outside, then looked up and saw the red moon in the sky and realized what the world of this novel was like. The rest of the guards came running to the loud screams. They confidently headed towards the prince. He understood that yesterday's assassination attempt would not have happened without support from inside the castle, so he should consider everyone except Fredo his enemy. The commander of the guards excitedly asked why he killed his own guard, and he answered him that he executed him for betraying a member of the imperial family. They immediately fell silent and froze, understanding what he was leading to. MC said that it could not have happened without their participation either. For negligence in relation to the protection of the prince, ignoring the assassins and assisting them in the assassination attempt on a member of the imperial family, he will execute them too. Do they have any last words? The guard commander gritted his teeth and swallowed nervously. He realized that he knew that they were involved in the assassination attempt yesterday. In that case, he decided to kill the prince right there and then, and ordered his subordinates to draw their swords. They drew their weapons, and Xian smirked, thinking that this was all so much fun. As the guard commander charged with a furious cry, MC said that he would add another crime to the list. The man wished him a quick death and swung his sword, but before he could get close, Xian finished him off and said that today's crime was another attempted murder. As the guard commander's body fell, the hall was silent for a few seconds. The guards slowly backed away in horror. They did not understand how this was even possible. Fredo wondered, is this really the Prince Xian he knows? MC turned to the others and said that this was just an execution to make an example of him. From now on, if anything happened inside the palace or leaked out, everyone would be executed immediately. Everyone now realized that this was a completely different person. He was no longer the weak prince. He exuded the aura of a conqueror and told them that he was their master. The guards had no choice but to obey him. Soon it was morning. Xian tried to activate the Black Star, and looking at his hand, thought that everything was going well. At this rate, the Black Star would soon reach level 1. Fredo distracted him from training. He ran up to him and excitedly said that he had a guest. Lady Priscilla wanted to see him. MC immediately realized who had come to see him. Priscilla Barmel is a character in the novel and the one who would be called the Princess of Misfortune in the future. This lady was the prince's fiancée. He soon met her. She took a sip of tea, after which she said that he was probably wondering why she came to him so suddenly. She said his name and confidently stated that she had come to ask for the dissolution of their engagement. He sighed heavily, and she, noticing this, wanted to say something, but he did not let her do so and agreed to dissolve the engagement. She was a little taken aback by his words, after which he headed for the exit and said that she had nothing more to do here. He left, leaving her completely confused. She did not expect him to agree to this so easily. While Xian was walking down the corridor with a dissatisfied look, his ex-fiancee's security approached him. A man named Grego towered over him menacingly, asking him to go back and apologize to Lady Priscilla. He was indignant at the man's commanding tone and added that he could not treat a lady in such a way. He looked at him with displeasure from under his brows and said that he understood everything. And in the meantime, Priscilla sighed heavily and thought that just recently he begged her to become his bride, and now he just agreed to break off the engagement. Everything looks like he left her. She does not like this. Even if they break up, it should not happen like this. She hurried to the exit to quickly break off the engagement the way she wants, but was quite surprised when she saw how he knocked down her knight with one blow. The second immediately began to conjure to attack him, but MC was faster and struck first. He built a protective barrier in front of himself, but he easily destroyed it and threw the man aside. After which he quickly caught up with him and, grabbing his head, slammed him against the wall and said that he can't stand it when someone gets in his way. A worried Priscilla ran up to her protectors and covered her mouth in shock, wondering what was going on here. Zion ordered the guards to take them and told the lady that he had spared their lives. He was about to leave, but she asked him to wait, and he turned to her. Thinking that she was so annoying, she confidently said that she wanted to stay here for a while. He wouldn't mind, would he? As he knew there were many issues to resolve before they could break off the engagement. He wanted to refuse her, but changed his mind. If everything went well, she could be useful. If he used the trait of hers that made her the princess of misfortune in the novel, he might be able to discover the true enemy in the castle. He told her to do whatever she wanted and left, and she thanked him and added that she was in his debt. 3 days had passed since she had stayed at the palace of the Lodestar, but she had still not seen the prince. If he was doing this on purpose, then why did he even let her stay? And what was going on? She had never seen the power he had used back then. She decided to find out today and found the prince at the training grounds, explaining something to his guards. She called out to him and asked if he was busy. He turned to her questioningly and she asked him, displeased, why he had never shown himself to her. Let him not tell her he was avoiding her. If he had planned this from the beginning, then why did he let her stay? He interrupted her and displeasedly told her to watch her language. She was taken aback by his words and, not believing her ears, asked him to repeat it again. He had told her not to cross the line. He had never asked her to stay. He had simply decided not to interfere. And was he obligated to visit her? She clutched the hem of her dress, realizing he was right, and agreed with him, after which she hurriedly left. He watched her go, and then returned to the discussion. Over the next week, he ordered them to double the number of night guards. Patrols would be in teams of 3, and all guards were now required to wear metal plates covering their necks and hearts for at least 3 days. Time passed, and night fell. Several assassins quietly snuck into the palace, while MC waited for them, sitting on his throne. While the enemies were running through the corridors of the palace, one of them noticed that everything was strange. Weren't the guards more than they were told? It was as if they knew they were coming. A loud sound was heard behind him. He immediately turned around to check what was going on, and saw his dead comrade. He immediately looked around for blind spots, wondering where they could have been attacked from, and then screams from the rest of the assassins were heard from all sides. He quickly looked around, telling the unknown person to show himself, and then Zion came out of the darkness. Realizing that this was all his doing, he became very nervous and thought, had he been hiding his power all this time? He decided to get out of here right away in order to warn his master about this. But before he could take a step, MC finished him off and said that he was going to let one of them escape, but unfortunately, not him. He looked at the traces of blood on the floor, then at the black star, and thought that soon all this would end. At that moment, a loud sound of a mana explosion was heard, and he turned around, thinking, was there a magician in the palace? He realized that he completely forgot about whom. There was a guest in his palace. Meanwhile, Priscilla repelled the attack of the assassins that attacked her and asked who they were. She folded her fingers in a magical gesture and exclaimed, how dare they invade the imperial palace? After that, a huge magic circle appeared in front of her, and then the wind swirled nearby. The assassin frowned and said that he had not heard of a magician in the palace. After which, he pounced on her, and she exposed the magic circle to the blow. But her magic was so weak that it could not hold back the blow of the blade, and she, realizing that her strength was not enough, became very nervous. The magic barrier cracked, and the assassin pounced on her, shouting that now it was all over. She froze in horror and covered her face with her hands. But for some reason the assassin missed. It turned out that his blade changed direction on its own. After that, something pierced his heart through and through, and he wondered what was even going on in this palace. Zion arrived. He stood up to protect the lady, and another assassin, hiding around the corner, cautiously looked out from cover and thought that this was a complete failure. Who would have thought that something like this would happen in the abandoned palace of the Guiding Star? When he met the prince's gaze, his heart sank, and then a loud crack was heard. The enemy escaped by breaking the window. MC looked after him, and then used the black star tracking technique, which allows him to see the thread of the dark soul, which will lead him straight to their base. The dark thread stretched after the assassin all the way to the palace, and he decided to pay them a visit soon. Morning came. A guest arrived. and while he was getting dressed, he thought that it was good that the black star had reached level 1. But for the same reason, the strain on his entire body was increasing. He needed a way to strengthen it. He dressed according to his status, and then went out into the room where his older sister, Evelyn Agnes, was waiting for him. In the novel, she was the central character, coming right after the hero in importance. As one of the princesses of the Agnes Empire, she was the most important candidate for the throne. In the imperial family, she was the only one who supported the hero's cause, although it would be more accurate to say that she tried to do so. Evelyn asked him if everything was all right, and he asked what she meant. She said that she heard that there was an attack last night, and he told her that as far as she could see, he was okay. His reaction made her clutch her head and thought, what a poor child. This time must have taken a lot of toll on him. She can't believe how much he's changed. She said that she was glad to hear that he was okay, and promised him that she would find and punish those who infiltrated the palace. She also hired new guards, so he can rest easy. He told her that there was no need, which surprised her a little, and he said that he already had enough guards. But what brought her here? She told him that she simply came because she was worried about the rumors about the incident. Even if they have different mothers, he's still her little brother. He'll be an adult soon, so he does understand that the succession ceremony is approaching. She took a sip of tea and placed the cup on the table, advising him to give up his claim to the throne, and he asked with displeasure why he should do that. She frowned and asked seriously, did he really not understand? He confirmed it and asked again why he should do that. She said that she couldn't believe that he was so careless. He wouldn't pass the succession ceremony simply because he had neither the physical strength nor the skills. He would surely fail even the first test and would remain lying on the ground without strength. Even if he passed the test and got into the White Star Palace, the succession ceremony would seem easy to him compared to what was happening there. Maybe a week, although no, he wouldn't last there even a day. So let him give up the ceremony. As she spoke, several stars appeared behind her, showing her power. It was the Celestia Star C, a power that was passed down only to the direct descendants of the Agnes imperial family. It represents the ability to control anything in this world. But Zion didn't care about her threat and said that he had one question for her. He showed her the black star and asked why she thought he had no power. Shortly after, Princess Evelyn returned to her palace with the knights. The knight who met her was very surprised that they were still with her, and she told him that he didn't take them. He asked in surprise, was she talking about Prince Zion? She confirmed it and said that he had changed. She couldn't believe that the person she knew before was sitting in front of her today. And when did he grow so much? Was he hiding his power? She remembered his power. It definitely wasn't the Star Sea Celestia. She ordered the commander of the knights to increase the security around the castle, but so that Zion wouldn't notice, and let them keep an eye on him. Time passed. MC received a gift from his older sister. Fredo said that it seemed that Princess Evelyn liked him very much since she sent something so valuable. It turns out that she sent him an elixir containing the strength and endurance of a 1,000-year-old ogre. With this, he can relax for a while, but he never thought that she would support him so much. He thought about the Celestia Star C in its nature and effect. This power is very similar to the Black Star Fall, but he is the only one who can use the Black Star Fall. How can such similar powers exist? He decided not to dwell on it, because nothing here makes sense, including the fact that he ended up in a novel. The princess's kindness may one day be useful to him. The knight said that Lady Barmel came to see him, and he allowed her to enter. As soon as she was inside, she asked displeasedly, why did he call her if before that he treated her as if she did not exist? He said that she had been in this castle for some time, so she should pay for her stay. She frowned and asked what he meant. He handed her a piece of paper with a magic circle drawn on it and asked how long it would take her to do it. She took it and looked at it carefully. Then her eyes widened in surprise and she asked where he got it. He told her that he drew it himself, and she said that the format, the composition, the principle of movement, she had never seen anything like it before. He noticed that she didn't tell him when he would be done with it, and she said that it would be ready no later than tomorrow. She looked at him differently now. She didn't think that Zion knew anything about this. It looked like detection magic, but she had a feeling that it was aimed at extracting something. She inquired about his purpose, and he answered her, without hiding anything, that he wanted to start the hunt. After everything was ready, MC gathered all the servants near the magic circle. One of the maids asked the butler what he thought the prince had gathered them for. He told her that he didn't know either. Since he had changed, he didn't understand what was on his mind. She agreed with him and said that the current prince was a bit scary. It was time to act. Zion ordered Priscilla to begin, and she cast a spell and used magic, and the magic circle lit up. She stood in the center of it and continued to activate the spell, and the maid said that she didn't like the glow. Not waiting for an answer from the butler, she called out to him, but something strange was happening to him. When she bit her finger and her blood got on the magic circle, something inside the butler came to life. Sharp spikes came out from under his skin, and his whole body began to change. A menacing roar was heard, something crawled out of the butler's skin. This magic circle was created to detect enemies, a magic that reveals the true identity of enemies within a certain range. Upon seeing the monster, Priscilla covered her face with her hands in shock and asked what it was. MC calmly told her that it was their enemy. The monster is the real enemy from the novel, a servant of the Demon King, who also played a role in the destruction of the world. Just like in the novel, it is here. The monster got on all fours and let out a piercing roar, and then walked towards the lady, and she fearfully asked why her. The knights immediately stood in front of her to protect her, and Zion was expecting all this. Priscilla's blood, called demonic, is like a heavenly elixir for monsters. According to the novel, Priscilla will be captured by demons who will become addicted to her blood and feed from her body, undead but not dead. She will then receive her nickname, the Princess of Misfortune. The knights drew their swords while MC stepped forward and thought that the monsters were incredibly powerful. Even the lowest level ones were more powerful than a normal human. The demon lands were full of such creatures. He stood in front of the monster that was rushing straight at him, which made Priscilla worried. The monster pointed its sharp spikes at him, and he reached out his hand to it in response. As soon as the creature approached, he pierced its chest with his hand and reached for its heart, destroying one, and was surprised that it had two. Despite losing one heart, the monster was still full of strength, and Zion had to retreat. After that, the former butler asked, "What kind of magic circle is this? And what kind of power does he have? Who is he anyway?" When Zion called himself his enemy, he thought for a second, and then rushed to attack. MC responded by taking advantage of the falling black star, and the dark energy flow reflected the monster's blow, which he could not believe. The prince extended his hand towards him, aiming at a specific spot, and then pierced the second heart and thought that it would be problematic if the black star did not have time to reach the first level. After his attack, the monster fell to the ground and began to evaporate. He broke its core, so now it should not be possible for it to contact the demonic lands and transmit information there. The knights assigned to him by Evelyn came running to the noise. One of them bowed to his highness and introduced himself to him. "He is Alex from the Knightly Order of the White Lion. Can he find out what happened?" Zion coughed into his fist and answered him that nothing happened. Of course, the knight did not believe him, and he simply said that he got rid of the enemies. He decided not to reveal the existence of demons for some time. He must destroy them all before they notice him and hide. Later in the evening, a report came to the palace of another prince that something had happened in the palace of the Guiding Star. The prince inquired what was the matter and asked if he wanted to talk about the attack they had planned. He had heard it had failed, although he did not understand the reason. His subordinate said that was not what he wanted to report. Demonic energy had been detected in the Guiding Star Palace. The prince asked what exactly he meant, but he did not know more. Their sources from that palace had stopped communicating, and no matter how hard they tried to question the maids working there, they would not say a word. The prince ordered him to plant more spies there and look into this, and his subordinate said that there was something else. There was a rumor going around that Prince Zion had changed recently. The prince asked him to tell him more about it, and he said that for one thing, he had become very tough, and they said he was using an unknown power. The prince smirked and asked, "Has he finally gone crazy?" Well, his life is constantly under threat, so it's no wonder. They don't have to worry about rumors like that. He was a loser since birth. The only thing he inherited from Agnes was his hair color. No matter how hard he tried, he would only be a pathetic bug in his path. He asked, "Isn't it his turn to go through the succession ceremony?" His subordinate informed him that he didn't express a desire to refuse, so everything will go as planned. The prince noted that he still doesn't know his place, after which he thoughtfully tapped his finger on the armrest and started talking about the ceremony. Why don't they spice it up? Time passed. There was still a whole week left until the ceremony. Late at night, MC went out into the city. He walked along a dark street and thought that this place was somewhere around here. It turned out to be very easy to get out of the castle. Everyone is suspicious of him, but he won't be able to escape them anytime soon. He walked up to the door and thought, is this the place? Moonlit Evening is a very popular restaurant in the capital, so much so that a commoner can't get upstairs where the private rooms are without an appointment. But the real purpose of this place is the Moonlight Eye Information Guild. To be more precise, it's just one of the secret branches of the guild. He walked inside and sat down at a table, and soon a restaurant worker came up to him and asked if he could take his order. He poured him some water, and he said that he wanted some sun liqueur and fried snowflowers for an appetizer. The man understood what he meant, and then led him to the basement of the restaurant, and they started walking down a long flight of stairs until they reached a room where the branch manager named Aileen was sitting. She remarked that it was the first time she saw him there, and he told her that he had some business with her. Aileen agreed, but before starting, she asked him to confirm his identity, and he asked, "Since when does the Information Guild ask about the identity of the customer?" She told him that they usually don't do that, but this is a special case. He didn't know that this place only recently became a Moon Eye branch. She tapped her finger on the table and said that they haven't even officially opened yet. That is, people from the outside don't know about it, like most of the core members of the organization. She remembers the face of everyone she knows, but not his. Immediately after that, there was a noise. The guild people surrounded Zion from all sides, but as soon as they approached him, they could no longer move. He activated his power and asked if he was too early. Dark streams of energy swirled near his hand, and then he swung it, throwing the attackers back several meters. They hit their backs on the metal fence with such force that they were bleeding. And the manager looked at Zion in shock and thought, how is this possible? Those guys are experienced thugs assigned to guard her. Some of them are the eyes of the moon, but they were defeated so easily. Zion's hair came out from under his hood a little, and he hurried to pull it back up, then said that it doesn't matter how he found out about them. The only thing that matters is that he has an order and they will fulfill it. Feeling the murderous aura emanating from him, Aileen became nervous and asked what he wanted. After that, he told her everything. He needed a fake document and information about the Black Forest. After he left, her subordinate came to Aileen and asked why she accepted his order. She asked, he remembers that fight, right? He confirmed this, and she said that at that moment, his cloak was slightly raised and gray hair was visible. In the whole world, there is only one family with such hair color, the imperial family of Agnes. He asked in surprise, does that mean he is one of them? The branch manager noticed that one of the lions of Agnes was leaving on a journey, and he said that in that case, he would call their best agents for it. She ordered him to find out everything. His position in the imperial family, why he left the palace, why he came alone. But, more importantly, let him find out everything about the Black Forest. He left to carry out her order and she looked after him, thinking, who is he? His aura and power, capable of destroying everything in an instant. It seems that he can claim the place of the next emperor. The next day came. Lady Priscilla was walking around the palace as discontentedly as always, and no matter how much she thought, she still could not understand. Was this just the tricks of a black magician? Apparently, that magic circle was tracking black magic. The imperial family most likely doesn't know much about what happened either. But can't you at least tell her about it? She was the one who drew that magic circle and used her own blood. Stomping loudly in rage, she headed to the prince's room, but Frito blocked her way, and she indignantly exclaimed, what does this mean? He told her that at the moment, His Highness does not wish to see anyone, and added that it was all because of the shock after the recent incident. She was indignant and wanted to call all his words nonsense, but she remembered in time that she was actually a decent lady and told him not to dare lie to her. First of all, His Highness himself did an excellent job of this. The knight asked her to refrain from such statements. His Highness ordered her to keep this a secret. She said that she was not even from the Guiding Star Palace and was not His Highness's subordinate. So why should she follow his decree? She remembered his cold gaze and immediately fell silent and lowered her drooping gaze. After which, the knight said that His Highness left a message for her. She immediately became agitated and looked up at him. After which he said that the prince wanted her to return home immediately. There was nothing more for her to do here. Meanwhile, MC was riding on a train that was powered by mana. There were no such things in his homeworld yet. Progress must have advanced much further here. After all, centuries have passed. He should borrow this technology in his time. He looked away, glancing at the suspicious man who was riding in the other seat, and thought that he was right. As he expected, several people would follow him from the moment he left the guild branch. That's why he showed his hair. If he kept it at hand, he would be able to receive information much faster. This place would become the eyes and ears of the hero who would appear in the near future. This guild will provide any support to the hero with the purest thoughts of saving the world without any benefit. And so he wanted to see these people with his own eyes. An announcement sounded on the train that they would soon arrive at Ruin Station, and Zion stood up from his seat, thinking that he needed people to become his arms and legs. After that, he got off the train and headed to the city with the thought that the knights and servants of the Guiding Star Palace did not have enough strength and experience, and he did not have time to train them. There was only one way out: to use the information from the novel and introduce new characters. Very soon he found himself in the outer city of Ruin. Here he would find his first subordinate, or to be more precise, not far from the city. He came to a square where there was a fire fountain, and he thought that he had arrived here on time. A purification festival that takes place once a month in Ruin is an event where they cleanse themselves of sins and pray for the future well-being and protection of the city. According to the novel, Ruin will be destroyed during the purification festival, and the Black Forest will be the starting point of the city's fall. It is said that this place is known only to Lord Ruin and his family, although the Lord's permission is required to enter the Black Forest. Noticing a presence behind him, he ordered his pursuer to get out, but the man didn't react. After that, he used his power and said that he wouldn't repeat it. Dark streams of energy hit a girl named Nari, who was following him, and because of this, she screamed loudly and fell to the ground. After that, she looked up at Zion in surprise and asked how he knew that she was following him. He didn't let her finish and said that he wanted to add one more task. He needed information about recruiting mercenaries in the ruler's castle and the location of people with a six-legged beast tattoo in this city. The girl looked at him in confusion, and MC headed back to the streets of the city, saying that she worked for one of the best intelligence guilds in the empire, so he didn't think it would take long. She looked after him in confusion, thinking that they weren't that cool yet, and then asked how he even found out about all this. Meanwhile, a girl named Rain came to her father and asked him for something. He asked if she really needed to do this. She confidently confirmed it and added that this was a good opportunity to eradicate the cleaners, but her father was still unsure. His hands trembled, and he said that even their ancestors, who had the power of dragons, resorted to sealing, unable to find the strength to destroy. How does she plan to handle it? She answered him confidently, almost on the verge of anger, that she did not want to continue sacrificing the inhabitants of their lands to these idiots, even if they did something unforgivable. After that, she left, slamming the door loudly, and as she walked down the corridor, she cursed and thought, "Is this the family of the great hero who eradicated evil?" She hissed another curse through her teeth and said that the cleaners still control them. She came to a small arena, and a guy named Hart Sidmail asked why she was so gloomy. His friend Ragno said that he knew the reason. The old man must have scolded her again. Ryan cleverly adjusted his glasses and told him to watch his language. He was the master of this land. Ragno grumbled that he was so boring because he was always serious. He responded that he simply could not ignore the insult to his master. The girl intervened and told both of them to stop, after which she decided to change the subject and asked how the recruitment was going. Did they find anyone useful? Ragno asked in return. What did she think? Even all together, they were no good. Maybe they should just do it themselves? Ryan agreed with him and Reen chuckled, calling them useless idiots, then turned to Hart and asked what about him. He told her that he wasn't sure about their usefulness, but he had a few curious guys in mind. Noticing someone, he leaned forward with interest and said that here is one of them. MC came into the arena, only his hair was now dyed black. The candidates gathered in a group in front of the dais, where all four were sitting on richly decorated chairs. One of the candidates asked, "Isn't that Hart's light sword?" Ragno from the Red Wall was there too. Have all 7 chosen ones of the North gathered together? But for what? They started discussing the rumors that something was going to happen during this purification festival, while MC took a closer look at Rain. This woman was one of the hero's future allies. She was gifted by the heavens, someone who only appeared once every 1,000 years, the strongest spearman in history, the queen of dragon slayers, the divine spear. These were the titles she would receive in the future. In the novel, she was positioned as one of the strongest characters, but that would happen in the future, not now. MC was called to the arena under the name Zion Harness, and he stepped forward, as did his opponent. They stood opposite each other, and the man asked, "So this was his opponent?" Zion immediately recognized him. It was the murderer Uro, a vile criminal who was still wanted. Even the soldiers were afraid to arrest him. He glanced at the nobles behind him and thought that they would only judge by skill anyway. His opponent meanwhile pointed weapon at him and said with a smirk that it seems like someone is going to die today. MC ignored him, and he, already starting to boil with rage, ordered him to surrender before it's too late, if he, of course, does not want to lose his limbs. After that, he lunged forward, took weapon behind his back, and then jumped on him and raised weapon above his head. Zion did not move at all. He looked closely at his opponent and saw power points on his body. Every creature in this world has them. Dozens of power points in each movement. The violation of at least one of them leads to a distortion of the movement. He does not even have to use the fall of the black star. He aimed at the point located between his neck and shoulder and took a step to the side, saying that unfortunately, his attacks will not work on him. He stretched his leg forward, causing Uro to almost trip and become confused, not understanding how he pulled off such a trick. And then MC clenched his fist and punched him in the face with all his might, causing him to fly several meters and eventually fall to the floor with a crash. The others were shocked now, wondering how he even did such a thing, and why the famous Uro just flew away from his punch. Zion meanwhile looked around and thought that the time had come. Hart asked the girl what she thought of him. This is all he showed so far. He wins with minimal moves. Usually those whose skills exceed the enemy's level do this, but he believes that such strikes are more effective due to his weak body. She thoughtfully raised her hand to her face and agreed with him. And Ragno asked what was so interesting about this slow idiot. He seems to move well, but any of them can do this? Or is he wrong? Besides, with a body like that, he's an easy target. Ryan agreed with him and added that this Zion guy was like walking on a knife edge. He could see that he trained hard, but he thought he was just born weak. Ryan said that his combat sense seemed excellent, but with that kind of ability, he'd be better off becoming a mage. Maybe he just didn't have the talent for martial arts. After that, she bowed her head in disappointment and sighed, saying that they still hadn't found any people. She looked up and thought that they couldn't put it off any longer. And at that moment, she noticed a man with a rather distinctive tattoo on his leg. She recognized the mark immediately and asked in anger, what was a moron from the Cleaner cult doing here? The Cleaner cult is a small society that worships the evil sealed in the Black Forest. This is what Rain is trying to suppress. It is a belief that is spreading like a disease throughout the northern part of the Empire, including the ruins. The cult consists of incorrigible scum, whose crimes range from kidnapping to murder and human sacrifice. Rain, holding a spear in her hands, thought, didn't they really filter everyone out twice like that? Hart called her. Rain? At that moment, a man from the Cleaner cult stepped forward and said, let the 6-headed beast arrive. He threw off his robe and said, it is their duty to calculate the route before its arrival, and his heart began to increase in size. The people present shouted in confusion, what the hell? To hell! We must stop him. He said, "Cleanse these unbelieving ignoramuses." His body began to transform. He added, "Their awareness will definitely come, but before that, they will need to die." His eyes lit up with rage, but the next second, Rein plunged her spear into his body. Ragno and the others ran up to her. She stopped, turned around and said, "I think she stopped him." Then she noticed another person whose body began to mutate. She thought it was a distraction. She shouted, "They have to stop them." The next second, a powerful explosion thundered in the square. Rein, covering herself with her hands, thought, "What is it?" A stream of smoke burst upward, and a cloud of energy dissipated. Those present looked on in surprise. Ragno laughed loudly, and turning to Rein, asked how she did it. When did she manage to learn such a thing? Ryan, turning to Reina, asked, "Milady, are you okay?" Hart said that it was amazing. She answered, "But it wasn't her, guys. Didn't they really notice?" In the shadow of the entrance stood the protagonist. He was concentrating energy in his hand. She, perplexed, said that the protagonist remembered the novel well, so it was not difficult to predict what would happen and change this event. He thought that he managed to repel the attack of the cultists, but simply defeating all the mercenaries is not enough to attract the attention of Reincarnated. Fortunately, a surprise attack did not take long to come and gave him the opportunity to act. In the end, after some time, Rein put her hand on the table and said that they should introduce each other. She thought, "Kayla and the rest are the chosen ones from the north, except for this woman. And the person next to her, then a candidate?" The elf thought, "It seems that only she and this woman were selected during the recruitment of mercenaries." Then Rein said, "Now she will briefly explain the essence of the operation, so they should listen carefully. Between the city of Ruin and the Salios Mountains, there is an unusual forest. A forest where everything, including grass, trees, are painted black. They call it the Black Forest. Those who went there never returned, so the passage is controlled by the city authorities and closed to ordinary travelers." The elf said that she had heard about the Black Forest before. She wanted to know not their goal, but a more specific way to achieve it. She answered, "To subdue evil." The elf was surprised. "Evil?" Rein said. "They must have heard the legends about the founder of her family. It is a tale of a hero who sprinkled himself with the blood of dragons and thus received their power, destroyed evil, and built the city of Ruin on the site of his feet. This story is quite famous in the north. In fact, evil did not fall then. It was so strong that their ancestor could only seal it. However, the Ruin are still paying for it." Then MC said, "The Festival of Purification." She frowned and then noted that it was true. More precisely, the payment is the purification ritual, which is held at the end of the festival. Hart said thoughtfully, "A purification ritual." She was talking about the ritual where the convicts from her town were sent to the Black Forest. She sighed and confirmed it, saying that they were being sacrificed to the Black Forest to maintain the seal. Ragno pointed to himself and asked, "Why would they need to submit to it then? The convicts were sentenced to death anyway. That was their payment for their time." Hart added, he wondered why such barbaric rituals were still being performed to this day. Rein put her hand forward and said, 5 times a month. That's how many times the victims were sent to the Black Forest. But what do they think would happen if there weren't enough convicts? In that case, those who had committed lesser crimes, or even innocent people, would be sacrificed, because a certain number of people had to go in no matter the circumstances. She remembered what happened when she was little and then added, "This can't go on anymore." She clenched her fist and said, "Stop sacrificing the lives of her people to some unknown bastard." Ragno laughed, clapped his hands and said, "She's right." He completely agreed. She convinced him. Then she said, "They know very little about the nature of this evil, so she herself is not sure of anything, but she can say one thing for sure. The power of this has weakened significantly due to being contained by the seal for a long time. Only a few people can enter the Black Forest due to a special magical barrier, and the people gathered here are, without a shadow of a doubt, the strongest of those she could gather." Kayla thoughtfully said, she would agree with that, but she can't understand why she invited this guy here too. With these words, she pointed her finger at the protagonist. Ragno smirked and said that he would like to know that too. The 7 chosen of the north. These people are also called the Heavens of the Next Generation. The faction would be considered the strongest if any of them were to be listed there. These are the ones whose skills are rumored to have already exceeded human limits, and 5 of the 7 chosen ones are here. Rein then sighed and said that it was just a premonition, but she felt that they would need him. Ragno, crossing his arms, asked what she said. Was she drunk? The protagonist sighed and thought it seemed like she was suspicious of him. He was sure that she had seen his strength, but the fact that she hadn't told the others proved that she didn't trust those gathered in this room. That man from the cleaner cult wouldn't have been able to get into the castle without help from the inside. He knew who the traitor was, but he couldn't figure out how to tell them in this environment without raising suspicion. All of this was necessary for Rein's growth. She then closed her eyes and said, "In any case, we'll have to discuss this another time. Now they will talk about their route, so they should listen carefully around the forest," she told her plan. And after a while, MC was sitting on the floor in a meditative pose. Looking at the energy in his hand, he thought, there are still problems with control. Of course, compared to the first time, when he just woke up in this body, it has become better, but he is not sure that he can defeat one of the 7 chosen ones at this stage of development. His future opponent will be much stronger than the chosen ones, and time, alas, is not on his side. He needs to reach the second stage as soon as possible. At this moment, Liu Xina approached him and said that he possesses extremely impressive strength. He turned around in surprise, looking at her. She came closer, holding the hem of her dress. Smiling, she asked how he does it. He noticed, and she is smart. She was surprised. Does he know her? Well, it does not matter. She walked further and stopped near the protagonist and told him not to go into the forest or he would lose his life. After that, she disappeared, and the protagonist said it was getting interesting. He thought, did he already change the story? But now is not the time to worry about it. After that, he stood up and told her to go out. Nari jumped from the tree and asked, seriously, how did he do this? The protagonist asked, did she bring it? She held out a bag and replied, a high-quality spell storage stone, just like he ordered. She had to get it in such a short time, it was difficult. Because of this, she will charge extra. But what is he going to use it for? He replied, to give up. Nari was surprised. What, give up? What is he? Then MC turned around abruptly, and she shook her head negatively, put her hand to her head and asked, and how should she report this? After some time, the group walked through the forest. The protagonist thought, everything here is really black. The road dust, the trees, the grass, and even the rocks lying around. Everything is in darkness, as if the forest had swallowed up all the light. Hart asked how people still haven't found out about this place. Something so serious should be handled by the Empire, not the city government. Ragno asked, does he want to go back already? Ryan added, he can leave, the little idiot. The protagonist thought, even if Ryan didn't give a full explanation, no one is complaining. He can see how much they believe in her. Except for Kayla, since she joined later. And then she said, it's time to get to work. The evil energy intensified. She knows what's going on inside, but they can't waste any more time. Ryan asked, are they going to go straight into the depths as planned? She confirmed it and added that before that, she released her powerful energy in front of her and said, according to etiquette, they should at least knock. Such a powerful blow left a mark on the ground. She sighed and shouted, now this can be considered a greeting. Ragno said, keep it up. Then Rain ran forward and he smiled and said, she is taking all the initiative. What are they doing there? They also need to go. Then they ran after her. The next second, several wolves appeared in front of them, and Rain thought, sinister monsters that only occur in the Black Forest? Damn, at this rate she will not be able to dodge. The next second, Ragno said, he told her not to rush forward so thoughtlessly. He released his energy and began to attack the monsters. He said that this is his job. Hart, armed with a knife, also went to attack. A few moments later, Ragno looked around and noticed that there was no end to them. The next second, Kayla crossed her arms and said, everyone back off unless they want to burn. She then spread her arms out to the sides, releasing a powerful energy that spread around. Phil picked up his weapon and said, Kayla, she should stand behind him. MC watching this thought, they were moving so well together. It seemed like they had trained a lot. He heard that they had been friends since they were kids. Apparently that was true. In any case, now was the time. Then he looked ahead. A bat was flying straight at him. The protagonist put his hand forward and then clenched his fist, after which the monster seemed to dissolve. As he thought, breaking the connection with evil was enough to deal with them. Kayla then came up to him and asked, how did he do it? She asked him a question. The next second, a huge monster appeared in front of them. Rain commanded, get back in line. What the? MC, looking at the monster, thought, has it started already? The rest of the team screamed, damn, the forest is changing. Ragno screamed, they mustn't panic, they must stick together. The monster swung its huge paw and slashed in front of itself. The team members jumped in different directions. The tree roots split them into two. Rain, who was covered by the roots, screamed. Hart. After a while, the protagonist noticed that he couldn't feel their presence. Apparently, they were far enough away. Everything was going according to plan. It was annoying, but there were some things to sort out before stepping into the sealed lands. Hart, who was standing next to him, said, oh, this is bad. The protagonist asked why. He put his hands on it. The protagonist asked because he couldn't kill Rain Dranier now? Hart turned around and asked what he meant by that. MC replied that he thought he understood. Meanwhile, Rain climbed onto the defeated monster. Ragno screamed, damn, Hart! He remembered the moment with the roots and shouted, why was this brat in there with him? Then Rain jumped off the monster, and he asked what she was going to do. Are they going to go look for them? She answered negatively, looking in the opposite direction. She said that they will continue moving deeper. She thought, since he is with Hart, maybe they will not die. It seems that this guy's power is opposite to the power of evil. Ragno said, he understands. Ryan thought, to be honest, she was suspicious of everyone around her after the last attack of the cult of cleaners. But this is definitely not the work of her guys. She has known Ryan since he was 3 years old, and he is like family to her. Hart, Ragno, and Kayla are her dear friends who have been with her since early childhood. It cannot be otherwise. One of the rising stars of the northern region of the Empire, the second son of the noble Sidmel family, ruling in the northern region, like the Dranier family, and one of the 7 chosen ones. All of this applies to Hart. But that's not all of his roles. One of the leaders of the cleaner cult that serves the evil of the Black Forest. Hart said in surprise, like him? No. Who else knows? The protagonist answered, so far only him. He asked, is that so? So he's so overconfident, or just stupid? He didn't think he could just kill him? Or does he think he can escape from him? Did he know that the one they served wasn't always evil? Originally, stupid people just used a power they didn't understand, called it evil, and threw it into the forest. He reached for his weapon and added, and all this time they were waiting for the day when she would break free of the seal and cleanse this world. Their duty as cleaners is to trample and destroy all the bugs that get in her way. Then he took out his weapon and ran forward sharply, delivering a slashing attack. He thought, there is no way the opponent will even notice the rapid swings of his blades. At the moment when the silver flash appears, the opponent's head has already flown off. The battle is over. His sword technique is flawless. Then how? The next second, he was behind the protagonist, and his hand was lying to the side. He said, what just happened? Then he turned around, and the protagonist said that he miscalculated twice. First, when he thought that he was weaker than him, and second, when he did not finish him off with one attack at the very beginning. With these words, the protagonist concentrated energy in his hand and around himself. Hart said in fear, damn. His eyes lit up with rage, and he used an attack called Moonlight. He thought, they say that a unique technique that can cut the moon in half is only owned by family members. This will help him hurt. Then the protagonist put his hand forward and noticed, oh, and another mistake. He sent his powerful energy forward, dissolving the enemy's attack. The next second he was in front of him and said, he should have just run away. Hart said, he really tricked him. But still, they guys can't stop them. After all, there are still. Before he could finish speaking, MC asked, their second person, right? He knows without him. Hart asked in surprise. How? The protagonist, looking around, thought he needs to act quickly. After some time, he walked further into the forest and thought that the Rain team should have already approached the center. Is it somewhere around here? Then he stopped near the tombstone and thought, here it is. The tombstone of the soul of an evil deity, the very seal that restrains him. I wonder why this thing was thrown in such a place and not placed in the center of the forest. There is no point in postponing it any longer. With these thoughts, he walked forward. Huge hands appeared behind him. He thought, the remains of the spirit sealed in the tombstone? And then the hands began to powerfully hit the ground. The protagonist ran forward and thought, it's time for the main body to show itself. He concentrated the energy in his hand and saw the monster and thought, that's right. He directed his powerful attack, destroying the enemy. He thought, according to the novel, the hero's team will use this to seal evil again in the future. If he uses the high-level sealing magic hidden in this tombstone. Then he took out the stone and felt an ominous aura behind him. He thought, it has begun. Ragno, breathing heavily, thought how far they still have to go. He said, Hart is alive, right? Kayla, who was standing near the roots, said, stop talking. It would be better for him to help clear the path ahead. Rain said, just go a little further. She thought, their target is straight ahead. Then an elf stood in front of them and said to wait. They can't go forward. If they continue, they will die. The next second, the roots rushed upward. Liushina was sitting on a stone nearby and noticed that they were too late. Rain said, evil. She was surprised. Who were they calling evil? Her? She stepped on the ground and added as she walked forward. What did she do to deserve such a name? She simply did what she wanted. Rain ordered everyone to line up. Ragno asked, is this the same sealed entity? Rain confirmed it. Even if it looks so confident, but it cannot use much of its power now. Everyone line up in. Before she could finish speaking, Ragno fell to the ground dead. Turning around, she called out to him in fear, and then, looking back, called out to Ryan. Kayla screamed in fear. Ryan, what is he? He said, the mother of all monsters. He tore off his shirt and added, her child has come to see her. Rain thought, the cult of the cleaners. Ryan said, he dealt with the people who wished to harm her, and he brought the main culprit of her enslavement. With this, he sacrifices to her a relative of the one who sealed her in the past, a descendant of Draenir. Ryan was kneeling. Ryan lowered his head and said that he hoped that she would find this offering worthy. In response, Liushina remained silent, and he, kneeling in front of her, asked, did she not like it? She asked why he would arbitrarily deal with her victim, and then she immediately attacked him and said, he was never her child, right? At that moment, the elf ran to the protagonist and grabbing him by the shoulders began to scream. They need to run away. That man in glasses betrayed them and killed everyone. MC thought she ran away? The elf added, and that woman, a human cannot cope with such a creature. There is no time to waste. They need to run away quickly. Then the protagonist sighed and answered negatively. He said that it was even better this way. He thought that he hoped that she would be stronger than he thought. It all started when she was born and began to feel this world. The desire to kill grew inside that woman. At first, she did not understand that she was different from other people. Until a fortune teller told her that her destiny was to die. Destiny, a path determined from the moment of birth. The woman accepted this path. She did not know how to doubt anyway. There was simply no need for it. Would she turn away from something that only brought pleasure? Even if it was fate that made her an enemy of the whole world and led to imprisonment, she did not regret anything, because the more people gathered together, the more lives she could take. Walking forward, she asked, so she is a descendant of Draenir? She does not think so. She is too weak for this. How boring. Does she know? After she deals with her once, she is going to get rid of the ruins. She is held back for so long, so she is wildly hungry. Will one city be enough? Then she saw flashes of energy in front of her. A powerful sphere rose up. Rain, gritting her teeth in anger, shouted, "She is a bastard." Then she began to attack her opponent and shouted, "How many sacrifices must be made for her to be enough?" Lucina said she finally pulled herself together. She put her hand to the gaping hole in her chest and said that she adores prey that resists like her. The more she resists her, the more suffering on her face. So let her despair become even deeper. The next second, monsters began to crawl out of the hole in her body, and Rein thought if she hits it, she will die. She began to dodge the attacks of the monsters and concentrated energy into her spear. Another wolf head rushed straight at her and bit through her weapon. She thought, her spear is made of black iron. Several wolf heads were heading straight for her. She looked away. Then the head flew off the monster's body. Rein jumped up, concentrating energy in her hand. She thought that she should finish it all with one blow while this monster was sealed. Lucina looked at her in surprise, and Rein thought before her strength left her, she had a chance, her only chance. Then she sent a powerful energy to the ground, and then from exhaustion, she fell down. She was on her knees and released the contents of her stomach. She clutched her stomach and thought, this is a side effect of forcibly using Genesis. But everything is going well. Lucina said because of the seal, she will not be able to use all her power. This is her last chance to finish it. And so, now that she has let her guard down, she must gather all her power. And that's what she thought, right? But did she know that the seal was broken a long time ago? She simply did nothing, out of sheer whim. Then, more monsters appeared from her back. Rein looked at it in horror, and she added, this means that they had no chance of winning from the start. Reina, despite herself, knew that she had no chance. There was no way a human could defeat such a creature. Then, several snakeheads rushed towards her, and she thought, how the hell did they seal such a monster? She closed her eyes and thought, Father, is this darkness? At that moment, the protagonist arrived on the field and, noticing Rein lying unconscious, thought, the shock she had experienced should be enough to wake her up. Lucina then asked, didn't she tell him? He would die if he came here. He said, Lucina Bloodwalker. She was surprised. Wow, he knows her name? Then he should know how she got it too. He thought, the creature that killed most of the world's population. Queen of Evil, one-man army, mother of monsters. She had many nicknames, but one best summed up her essence. He said, Witch of the Sky Slaughter. She said that she didn't think he was that stupid. Didn't she warn him? He asked. Why should he listen to her? She asked in response, because otherwise she would kill him? He chuckled. Seriously? Who said that he was going to die by her hand? She was surprised. What? He said that from today on, she would serve him. From the very beginning, Lucina was one of those he decided to lure to his side. He thought, since she was the Witch of the Sky Slaughter, it was worth the effort. He also thought about Rein, but she was destined to become a comrade of the hero. Then Lucina repeated, to serve him? Well, then he should try to force her. She released her creatures from behind her back. MC took out a stone and threw it forward. She covered her hand, sighing in surprise. Then the protagonist looked at her seriously. The most difficult spell that the hero Draenir used to seal the Witch of the Heavenly Slaughter in the past. A supernatural technique that only takes the souls of the caster and the target, then locks it in another world. A large circle of soul destruction. He transferred the magic contained in the tombstone to the spell storage stone he received from the informant from the Moon's Eye and activated it. Due to the complexity, he was only able to transfer the main part, but it would be enough. Then Lucina said, I see. And he acted like this because he believed in it? Did he know that from the moment they entered this forest, she was aware of their every move? This black forest is her, but why does he think she allowed him to do this? Simply because it will not change anything. A large circle of soul destruction is not a sealing magic. It destroys the target's soul using the soul of the caster as collateral. This means that the spell is useless if his soul is weaker than the target. That's why even that bastard Draenir barely managed to seal her. Over the centuries, her soul has become even stronger. With that, she smirked as she continued to release her creatures. She said, but would his soul be able to suppress hers? The protagonist replied that he wasn't sure, so they would test it now. He concentrated the energy in his hand and added, he was always curious about something. Was the soul sealed in Zion? Agnes really the Dark Emperor who ruled the entire world? Or was it the same sick principle that inherited the memory of that emperor? Had his soul truly ceased to exist? The Great Soul Destruction Circle creates a place where only the soul without a body exists. That's where he would be able to get the answer. Lucina asked, would he test it? With her? With the power that was barely enough to defeat one of those people they call the Chosen Ones? She didn't want to kill him right away because of this curious power, but if he was trying to upset her, he succeeded. As long as they were here, she was going to get rid of this spell once and for all. Should he tell her how many lives he had? She then used an ability called Sangria Requiem. The huge creature rushed straight towards the protagonist and opened its mouth. Lucina watched this with a smirk, and then she felt a pulse of energy. Confused, she asked, what? How? She thought in surprise. Her hand disappeared, but there was no reason for it. The protagonist said it seemed like her stomach would explode if she swallowed it. He thought, in the large soul destruction circle, he could definitely feel the power of the Black Star, a feeling that endlessly expanded and became clearer, creating hundreds of ways to destroy the enemy in front of him. The Black Star is the power of the Emperor who ruled the world in the past. She screamed indignantly. What did he do? He asked, and she didn't understand. She was indignant. How dare he? How dare he? MC pointed his hand at her and then clenched his fist. Everything around her was covered in cracks. She screamed. What? He asked. Hasn't she noticed yet? The next second, she was next to him and clenching her teeth, she said, "Him!" He thrust his hand forward, attacking her head. Then she jumped to the side and screamed, "He's an idiot." Then he pointed his hand at her, releasing his powerful energy again. She said, "What the hell?" She thought, no matter how far she ran, her body continued to break down. She hadn't felt anything like this since she reached the pinnacle of blood magic. At what point did she make a mistake? Where did she take a wrong turn? And when? Really? She saw the stone in his hand, and she thought she might actually die. No, she definitely won't die like that. She asked him to stop and make it stop. He asked, "What do you mean stop? She has many lives, doesn't she?" Sangria Requiem is one of the unique spells of the Heavenly Slaughter Witch. It takes away a portion of life, kills its opponent, and transfers it to the user of such magic. The witch said in surprise, "How is he?" The protagonist thought, "It is often said that an oath or contract engraved in the soul cannot be broken. Usually, it is difficult to manipulate the soul directly, but in this place, there is no physical shell. He will teach her a lesson in absolute obedience, together with all-consuming horror." Then he asked, should he get rid of only half? After a while, he lowered his gaze and thought, "Fortunately, it seems that not much time has passed. Rain is lying there. He won Lucina's obedience, but it is not flawless. The reason for this was the destruction of the large destruction circle, which happened because it could not withstand the power of the Black Star. However, it was not that bad. If everything went according to the original plot, Lucina would have awakened as the Witch of Doom and would have become a great hindrance to the hero's team. But now, after his intervention, this will not happen. She lowered her head at this moment and thought that she had lost. It was a crushing defeat. She felt the seal of submission engraved in her soul. Where did this guy come from? She said, but does he know? If she were in his place, she would not let down her guard. One day, she will remove this seal and tear off his head. He looked at her out of the corner of his eye and said, "Good luck." Turning in the opposite direction, he added, "From now on, she should call him Master." She answered, "Of course, Master," and she had one last question. He told her to ask it. She said, as he knows, she likes to kill. This is not just a hobby, this is her destiny and her reason to live. The more victims there are, and the stronger they are, the more pleasure she gets. Putting her hand to her chest and smiling, she asked if she followed him, how many people would she be able to kill? He smiled and answered, more than in her wildest dreams. After a while, Henry asked how long she would behave like this. Ryan sat on the chair, not answering a word. He thought, 3 days had passed since Ryan was found alone, unconscious in the Black Forest. There were only traces of a fierce battle around, but not a single member of the subjugation squad was found. It would be better not to ask her anything. Coming to the exit, he said, at least she should not reproach herself with hunger. Lowering her head, she said that it was her fault. It happened because she was too weak. She covered her face with her hands and said, everyone died. The people who had been with her for decades, the ones who were closer to her than her own family, it wasn't because of Ryan's betrayal or the lack of people in the party. It was because she was weak. She had to become stronger. No matter what, she had to. With that, she clenched her fist and pressed it to her chest. She thought that she could feel it, that witch was still alive. One day, she would tear her to pieces with her own hands. And that boy, it was definitely Zion. Most likely, he was also killed by the witch, but perhaps there was a small chance that he was saved. Maybe they would meet again someday. After that, she stood up from her chair. Meanwhile, Aileen pointed her finger at the documents and said, is this true? Her subordinate confirmed it, and she, looking through the documents, said, the Black Forest has disappeared. She thought, or rather not so. The evil energy that filled the forest disappeared, as if it had never happened. She asked, in that case, could the witch be considered dead as well? He replied that the informants had failed to enter the forest, so they couldn't confirm it. But given that the evil energy had disappeared, he assumed she was dead. She wondered if the Heavenly Slaughter Witch had disappeared. They couldn't easily accept the disappearance of someone as powerful as her. She said, maybe that Imperial offspring. She wondered how powerful a person would have to be to kill the Heavenly Slaughter Witch. She thought, a direct descendant. It would be possible if a direct descendant of the Imperial family took on the matter, because each of them could be called a true monster with immeasurable potential. To understand why he did this, she needed to find out who he was in the first place. She asked if they had any information on this guy. The subordinate replied that after investigating the castle, it was found that all but one of the Imperial family members were there. She asked who was missing. He replied, they call him the captive prince, Prince Zion. After a while, Frito asked, is he deaf? The captain of the 4th Division of the Imperial Magic Squad Icarus, Fernando Pringham, replied that he would leave only after he saw Prince Zion with his own eyes. Then he handed him a scroll and said, he needed this signature. Brito thought, Prince Zion, it's been almost a week. Where is he? Maybe something happened outside. Fernando asked, does he know that today is his last chance to participate in the succession ceremony? If Prince Zion doesn't sign this by the end of today, he will miss his chance. Brito thought, other members of the Imperial family can participate by giving confirmation and not showing up in person. But Fernando thought, he's sure of it. He's been coming here every day for 3 days now, demanding his signature, and he hears excuses like feeling unwell or training in the basement. Nothing but excuses. This meant that Xian was not in the palace of the guiding star, or rather, he thought that he was not in the imperial castle at all. Members of the royal family who had not yet undergone the succession ceremony were forbidden from leaving the palace grounds without permission. If he could prove the fact of his absence, he would do the third prince a favor. He then folded his arms across his chest and smiled, asking where the prince was now. Fredo replied that he was not feeling well, so he was resting in his bedroom. Fernando ran forward, pushing him away with his hand, and shouted that he must see him today at all costs. He started running up the stairs. Fredo ran after him and shouted, "Captain, he must stop." He thought, "This is the end, Prince Xian." Fredo thought, "Prince, so where the hell is he?" Fernando then shouted, "His Highness." He apologizes for being rude, but it is urgent. He then opened the doors, walking inside. MC sat at the table and, putting his hand on the book, said if he understands that this is rude, then it is not worth doing so. Fernando looked at him in horror, and he asked, "Does he not think so?" Then the captain bowed and apologized. He thought, what is going on? He's radically different from the Xian he heard about. This imperiousness is not inherent in the captive prince, right? He is more like it. Then he looked in surprise at the protagonist's outstretched hand. He said, "Paper, he needs a signature, right?" Fernando, holding his hands, ran forward and confirmed this. Then he handed over the documents and the protagonist added, "And also, he does not like it when someone touches what belongs to him." After that, he signed and handing the documents back, said, "He better be careful." Fredo asked in surprise where he disappeared to. He scared him to death. He is asked several times a day. MC thought it was close. He almost missed the succession ceremony. Liushina should have arrived in the capital by now. By the time she completed the orders he gave her and returned here, he should have finished the ceremony. And before that, he looked at Fredo and asked, "Is everything ready?" He asked, "Does he mean the 1,000-year-old ogre heart that Princess Evelyn gave him?" Of course, they did everything as he ordered. The protagonist looked at his hand and thought, he needs to completely absorb the power of the 1,000-year-old ogre heart. The time spent processing it will definitely pay off. By absorbing the power of the heart, he will reduce the shortcomings of this body, and he needs to reach the second level of the Black Star Mastery before the succession ceremony begins. Meanwhile, Dean, sitting on a stool, looked at the others and said, "He is very angry." Sam folded his arms and said, "They failed twice. No wonder he is furious." According to number 4, someone incredibly powerful is secretly guarding the Guiding Star Palace. Mark asked, "A person with such power is protecting a forgotten prince? Are they saying that there's a point in this?" Dean said, "Enough. It has already happened." Holding his weapon in front of him, he added, "It is more important now to concentrate on the orders he gave them for the near future. He thinks this is their last chance, so they all need to get ready." Mark added, "Is it time for the succession ceremony to take place in the Imperial Palace yet?" Dean, standing up, confirmed it. As always, he will give them the route. Then the question was heard, "Who is it anyway?" One swung his weapon in front of him. Liushina, who was standing in the corner, said, "There is no need to cut spur of the moment." She walked forward and added, "Even if they are weak." Dean asked who she was. She asked, he was going to die soon anyway, so why bother answering? The others charged with their weapons and shouted, "Ah, she is a cocky fool. They must show her." Liushina closed her eyes and said, "Master, if this is his order, she will gladly obey." Mark ran forward, but at that moment, a snake-like creature burst out from behind her and attacked him. The next warrior jumped over the monster. Liushina, noticing it, waved her hand, attacking the enemy. The others approached her, putting their weapons to her neck. Dean stood behind, swinging his knife. He shouted, "She must die, monster." Then he swung his weapon. Her head was separated from her body. Dean sighed in relief and then ordered the others to take care of the body. Liushina asked who he called a monster. He hasn't even seen real monsters yet. With that, she smirked. Her head returned to its place. She released her creatures from behind her. The men looked at this in surprise. After that, Liushina licked her lips and thanked them for the food. The succession ceremony is a qualification test that the direct descendants of the imperial family take to prove their strength. It is only held when the heir comes of age, but not only direct heirs can participate. Agnes relatives are scattered throughout the empire, and they also have certain rights. Although they cannot claim the throne, even if they pass the ceremony, they are still often willing to take the risk. There is a reason for this. The only way for a collateral family to enter the imperial palace is to successfully pass the succession ceremony. After a while, Lynette said, with a smile, and he swore that he would never set foot in the imperial palace again. She did not expect to meet him here, Vale Elones. He looked at her and said, he can say the same about her. She smiled and asked how she could miss such an opportunity. She didn't think the succession ceremony would be held so soon. He agreed. It was true. He was also surprised. She added that she heard that a captive prince would participate this time, the most talentless descendant in the history of the Agnes family, the height of incompetence and a disgrace to the imperial family. Vale said, if the rumors are true, he has no reason to participate in this succession ceremony. Lynette said, even so, but why shouldn't he try? She thought, with such mediocre skills, he would most likely die during the ceremony. He does not have the qualities that an emperor should have: the charisma to lead people, the ability to distinguish truth from lies, the ambition to conquer the whole world, and the most important thing for Agnes, overwhelming strength. This tradition dates back to the first emperor. The succession ceremony is to check if a candidate is fit to be emperor, so it is a strength-focused ceremony, and weakness in this case could cost the heir his life. She smiled and said, but of course it hasn't come to that yet. She then raised her index finger and said, I wonder what he's thinking, although it's even better for them this way. Vale folded his arms over his chest and looked at her and said, even if he lived as quietly as a mouse, it would hardly be enough to survive here, and he even thought of drawing attention to himself. Anyway, the ceremony will begin soon. Why isn't he here yet? She asked. Maybe he finally realized what he did. In horror, he covered himself with a blanket and sat in his room. This could be the first ceremony without the participation of direct descendants. Well, it's better for them. The observer then said, well, since Prince Zion hasn't shown up yet, they're only going to start the ceremony. Before he could finish speaking, one of his subordinates shouted, Prince Zion has arrived. The doors opened and the protagonist walked forward. Lynette asked in surprise, is he a captive prince? You can't tell by his appearance, right? She thought, is this really the prince she had heard so much about? The shame of the imperial family? Walking forward, the protagonist said, they will begin the ceremony. When MC approached the observer, he said, Prince Zion has arrived. It is time to announce the rules for the ceremony. It will be held here in the testing palace. The protagonist thought he was almost too late. In order to reach the second level, it was necessary to prepare the body for it, otherwise it would not withstand it. The heart of a 1,000-year-old ogre. After absorbing the energy of this, he was finally able to reach 2 stars. The book did not mention the succession ceremony. Better to be on guard. The original plot began with Zion's death, so the ceremony was never held. Confusion, contempt, surprise, mockery. Most likely, most of them think that he will not be able to pass the ceremony. Maybe not all, but it does not change the essence. Even taking into account all his recent actions, it would be foolish to hope that they will change their minds so soon. Then the observer said, only the first 3 who arrive on the top floor will pass the ceremony. The checks on each floor are controlled by observers, including him. Then he wished everyone good luck. After that, the observers went up the stairs, and the protagonist said that he knew it. Everything is as he thought. Meanwhile, the observer said, Prince Zion. He thought he saw him a few months ago. That weak gaze on the floor, a body that can break from one blow, and lousy combat and magic skills. Even then, it became crystal clear to him why he was considered a disgrace to the imperial family. But now he sees a completely different picture. His natural movements are majestic, like a ruler. A calm gaze, looking down on everything. Even his body looks fit, as if he had been working out. What had happened to him in the past few months? However, it doesn't change anything. This succession ceremony is just one big trap, a trap that he can never escape from. There is no way to avoid it. Many are eager to kill Zion, which means he won't live to see the end of the ceremony. He can only sympathize with everyone who is next to him. After a while, those present in the hall began to shout, damn, only 3 can pass? 1 for each gate. Lynette turned around and looked at the protagonist who came to the stairs. Vale approached her and asked, wasn't she going to go in? If not, he would go first. He ran to the door, and Lynette, holding the hem of her dress, ran after him and shouted that she was coming. Then MC turned around and turned to the stairs and thought, so each floor will test his ability as the heir to the throne? After some time, he arrived at the location and thought, the sound of water. No, it's not water, it's man-eating bugs. Hadn't they gone overboard with the difficulty of the first trial? He supposes that in that case there should be a way around it, but he still won't use it. The second level of the Black Star's Fall is not an easy achievement. The first level is one thing, with the second, it's like a world opens up. Then he said, an ocean of darkness. He thought, this is the power of the Black Star's Fall, which denies all existence. All that remains is for him to destroy everything. Are they still watching? He can imagine what their faces are like now. After that, he walked up the stairs, entering the next room. He thought, this place is a huge labyrinth. Is this the starting point? The next second, an attack flew in front of him, and he thought, he looked at the Death Knight standing in front of him and thought, for the sake of the ceremony, they even placed this undead in the Imperial Palace. A second later, the knight swung his weapon again. The protagonist dodged to the side and used dark vision. He noticed a glowing spot on the opponent's body, and then concentrated energy in his hand. Many attacks were directed at him, and several more knights appeared. The protagonist laughed, and then asked, was he really that predictable? He thought that he expected something like this, but he didn't think they would go this far. It was obvious that they were not planning on leaving the participants alive. More precisely, their goal is to kill him specifically. There's no way that the minimum ability test would be that difficult. Using the undead also means that they won't leave any witnesses behind. He said, how interesting. If that's the case, he thinks that he can disregard some of the rules too. The next second, the knights charged while swinging their swords, but MC released his ability forward. Meanwhile, Lynette ran through the labyrinth, breathing heavily. She thought, something's wrong. Tens of thousands of man-eating bugs attacked as soon as they entered. This is definitely not the level of the succession ceremony. If she hadn't used her disguise skill, there wouldn't even be a corpse left of her by now. And a death knight at that. The undead in the middle of the Imperial Palace is absurd, but then the knight tried to attack her, She covered her head with her hands and continued running forward, thinking, they're also incredibly strong. Were all the previous ceremonies like this? This is simply a massacre of all participants. The next second, she hid behind the wall and thought, barely escaped. After that, she turned her gaze to the side and noticed the protagonist standing surrounded by knights. She said, Death Knights? Is this Prince Zion? He is not inferior to his opponents at all. She would even say he is winning, and his movements are not only natural, but also beautiful. Even if a land animal watches the star every night, he still cannot touch it with a finger. Even she has a hard time keeping track of the prince's movements. She said, so he has been hiding his strength all this time. She thought, such a skill power cannot be achieved in a few days. He fooled everyone around him, including the imperial family, endured all the insults and accusations despite such strength, but why? Meanwhile, the protagonist, continuing the battle, thought, the undead will not die so easily. He needs to completely destroy it. He pushed off the ground and used an ability called Storm. A powerful storm rushed forward, and the protagonist thought that he should first dispel the magic that enhances their abilities. He waved his hand, knocking off the helmet of one of the knights, and then dodged the attack of the next one and concentrated the energy in his hand, then directed it at the next opponent. Another knight went to attack, and MC again concentrated the energy in his hand and directing it at the knight and fought the last one. At that moment, the knight turned his back. Lynette anxiously shouted at him to be careful. After that, the protagonist closed his eyes and, looking at the gate, thought, the other participants were unlucky. After all, this was all set up just to kill him. However, they themselves decided to participate in the succession ceremony, and it is also their responsibility to go through with it. He thinks that he should finish this first. Meanwhile, the observer indignantly shouted, what the hell? He thought, he has never encountered such a power. Could it be that the blood of Agnes had suddenly awakened in him? He grabbed his head and, clenching his teeth, said it was impossible. Damn if he was going to blame him for that. Then he asked how far the prince had gone. Turning around, he added, Cardo. He asked him where he was. Why wasn't he answering? Then he looked at Cardo's head in surprise. The protagonist was standing nearby. His entire hand was bloody, and he asked, did he mean him? Meanwhile, Enoch asked, wouldn't it be a quiet night? His subordinate answered that it was. Everyone had disappeared in just a day. Except for the guests, no trace of people was found anywhere. The strange thing was that there were traces of a struggle, but no blood. The prince was surprised. No blood? Maybe it was the bloody tower? Regan bowed and said that they were looking into the matter. The prince added that he did not expect to lose such a useful card. Reaching for the cup of drink, he said, things have not been going well for Zion lately. If he passes the succession ceremony and officially becomes the emperor candidate, his maternal family will change everything. He looked at his reflection in the drink and wondered, was he just lucky? Or was he hiding something? The next second, he threw the cup to the side, breaking it into many pieces. Stretching his hand forward, he told Regan to tell them to take care of the succession ceremony properly. Meanwhile, the observer screamed in surprise when he, turning to his subordinates, he shouted, why did he stop like an idiot? He must kill him. He thought nervously, he doesn't know how he got here, but there are advantages to this. It's better to let him die here. After that, the protagonist grabbed the attacker's face and said, attempted assassination of a representative of royal blood and machinations at the succession ceremony. He thinks that the death penalty will do as a punishment. The people present looked at him in horror, and then one of the observers swung his weapon, trying to hit the protagonist, but in response, he concentrated energy in his hand and directed it into the body of the attacker. After that, another observer directed his attack at the concentrated energy of the protagonist. He noticed the observers and ran towards him, while he screamed in fear. What the? He put up a wall of fire in front of him and thought that he did not expect him to attack like this, but as soon as he touched the fire shield, his entire body caught fire. The next second, the protagonist, easily penetrating the fire wall, asked what he was thinking about. The observer, watching what was happening in fear, thought, what is going on here? Does he have any more skills than those he demonstrated against the Death Knights? The observer screamed, begging for mercy. Prince Zion, he must show mercy. The observer knelt down and said how they could kill it. He looked at the protagonist and thought, they can't kill him. It was impossible from the start. MC looked down at him and said, they must be doing all this on someone's orders, but do they know? It's not him they should be afraid of. He concentrated energy in his hand, and the next second the observer lowered his head and desperately shouted, he will tell him everything he knows. He begs for mercy. The protagonist replied, no need. He was surprised. What? The protagonist swung his hand and said that he already knew. The observer's head separated from his body, and MC turned around and asked, well, how long is he going to pretend? One of the observers began to turn into a monster and asked, so did he notice? He said, he really didn't expect it to turn out like this. The pathetic Prince Agnes hid such power. The protagonist thought he noticed when he crushed his heart and a weak evil energy burst out. He is stronger than the last one he killed. The demon said, there is a demon in the royal palace, and he is not surprised. So he knew all along? He planned to leave quietly, but changed his mind. He wants to ask something. MC said that it is not up to him to decide. He decides here. He concentrated the energy in his hand. Meanwhile, Lynette continued running through the labyrinth and asked where the hell he went. Disappeared in a few minutes. She thought to survive this crazy succession ceremony, she needs Prince Zion. The problem is, she does not know where he went. Then she felt a presence at the side and swung her weapon. Vale asked if she should check first who she is attacking, a monster or a human. She was surprised by his presence and asked, "Is he still alive?" He sighed and said, like her, he thought she died on the first floor. Then she said, "No matter. Did he see Prince Zion?" He was surprised. "Prince Zion?" He didn't. He thinks he's already dead. Lynette objected. "He's alive. He knows this succession ceremony is weird, right? In order to survive, they have to find him." He asked, "What is she talking about?" She clenched her fist and said, "He's very strong." Vale objected, "Nonsense." Meanwhile, the protagonist looked at the demon who was screaming, "Pathetic insects." The protagonist thought, he's stronger than yesterday's monster, but his level is lower than the middle-class monsters in the novel, and his regeneration is weaker than Liushina. If the battle drags on, those outside will notice and come running here. We need to deal with him quickly. The demon screamed, "Idiot! How dare he get distracted?" With these words, he appeared very close to the protagonist and, swinging his fist, shouted, "He won't leave a wet spot on him." Then he delivered his blow and looked at the empty space in front in surprise. MC appeared behind him and apologized, saying that it was his line. The demon was surprised. "What?" Then the protagonist plunged his hand into the enemy's body, and the demon fell to the floor and said, "Damn it, the cursed blood of Agnes." The protagonist looked at his hand and thought, well, that's it. He destroyed its core. Vale at that moment shouted in bewilderment, "How did a demonic monster get into the Imperial Palace?" But MC turned around and looked at them. They lowered their heads, and Vale thought he just destroyed it. How strong is he if he could resist such a monster? The next second, the protagonist pointed his finger at Lynette and said that she is the second. Then he pointed at Vale and said that he was the third. As he passed them, he added, he congratulated them on passing the succession ceremony. Oh yeah, what they saw here was a secret. They answered, of course. After a while, the protagonist sat in the back seat of the car, putting his hand on his chest. He thought, the black robe wasn't that bad. Only Fredo made so much noise. Then he said that he had no regrets. Even if he died right now, he could see His Highness entering the White Star Palace. And he was still alive. It reminded him of the time when he was still a baby. And he still remembered how hard it was for him to breathe normally. The protagonist thought, even during the succession ceremony, the problem of killing the royal family was more serious, so the problems of the demons were forgotten. Earlier, Priscilla had placed a bracelet on the protagonist's arm and said that it was a protective charm bracelet. Their engagement had not yet been dissolved, so it would be right if she gave it to him for successfully passing the succession ceremony. The protagonist looked at her and said that if this was an attempt to stay in the Guiding Star Palace, then he was suggesting that she give up. She sighed indignantly. In the present, the protagonist looked at his sister, who was sitting next to him, and said that she really didn't need to come. She folded her arms over her chest and, turning her gaze to him, asked if nothing had happened during the succession ceremony. He answered that he definitely had. She said that she could feel demonic energy emanating from the palace. He replied that he had no idea what she was talking about. Evelyn said, "The White Star Palace is hell. It is teeming with power-hungry ghosts who can't wait to tear each other apart in a struggle for power. Brothers plot to kill each other, and those who are hungry for power tear each other's flesh. Zion, can he survive in such a place?" She thought that she knew that Zion was no longer the same as before, and yet he would always be her weak little brother who needed her help. Besides, she was sure that someone definitely had a grudge against him. MC said that he was going there not just to survive, but to seize it. The sister looked at him in surprise. After a while, they arrived at the right place. The protagonist got out of the car, and Evelyn said that there was a security checkpoint further on, so she would not go with him. He should take care of himself. After that, the door closed and the car drove on. The protagonist approached the entrance. Ronier said, "Welcome. He is his servant in the White Star Palace for today. He should follow him." Walking along the corridor, MC thought, the more he looked, the more familiar this place seemed to him. Except for the slight difference in color, it looks very similar to the palace he stayed in when he was the emperor. Isn't it because there was a real imperial castle in the novel? Only he feels like there's something more to it. After that, Ronier said that he would go on alone. The knights guarding the entrance bowed and said that Prince Zion was entering His Majesty's chambers. The protagonist walked up to the emperor and thought, Emperor Erdios Agnes, the ruler of a huge empire, the master of this world. What a pitiful appearance compared to his huge titles. Is there really less than 2 months left? Then the emperor opened his eyes slightly and looked at him and asked, "Who is he?" Meanwhile, Liushina, who walked up to the gate, said that she never thought she would come here. She thought that he definitely wasn't lying back then. Although it's not that good, she has killed a lot of people recently. It will be better in the future, right? At that moment, one of the guards blocked her way and asked her to prove her identity or show permission to enter the palace. She looked at him and replied that she had neither of those. He said that in that case, they would not be able to let her in. She folded her arms and objected. She must pass. The master ordered her to come to the Imperial Palace. The guard was surprised. Master? Then she must name him. She thoughtfully replied that she did not know his name. Well, he is thin and ugly, and with such wide-open eyes. With these words, she began to parody the protagonist, and the guard, looking at her, thought that she was strange. After that, they blocked her way again and told her to come back with an invitation. After that, Liushina frowned and said, In that case, she has no other choice. With these words, she released her aura. Meanwhile, the Emperor looked at the protagonist and said that he is not the same Xian as before. MC thought that he noticed right away. Is it because of the ruler's authority that he maintains even at the threshold of death? The Emperor said that even the laws have not changed since his birth. But him, the protagonist, thought that he noticed the changes in Xian more than anyone else. After realizing that Xian had no talent, he was locked in the Guiding Star Palace and turned a blind eye to all sorts of assassination attempts. And the one behind all of this was none other than Erdios. Then the protagonist asked who made him like this. The Emperor asked in response, isn't he in league with them? It turns out that he was wrong. Just think, he thought that he was the same as them, although their powers were so different. MC said that about 400 years ago, since the time when Emperor Agnes founded the empire, there was only one kingdom in the world. But one day, in the far south of the continent, collectively called the End of the World, a kingdom of demons appeared. No one knew why it appeared, but the number of demons kept increasing, and a war between humans and demons began. Many heroes appeared, but they all died. However, about a century ago, the demons suddenly stopped invading. No one knew the reason, but the people were finally able to exhale. But this was a mistake, because in fact, the demons never stopped invading. The Emperor noted that it was true. The demons had crept in and merged with the people so much that no one even noticed how deep they had penetrated. His hand trembled, and he added, by the time he learned the truth, he had already been poisoned by the demonic poison. He could not do anything. If he tried to eradicate them in a hurry, the empire would collapse in an instant, and there was no way to disconnect them from the people. The protagonist asked, is this the reason he did not choose an heir? He answered that it was true, because he could not know for sure who was related to the demons. No, perhaps even someone had partially become one of them. The one in the guise of Xian Agnes? What does he really want to do in the Imperial City? He answered, he wants to devour this place, the White Star Palace, the Imperial City, this empire completely. The Emperor laughed in response and said, right, it's better for him to devour this empire than to let the demons destroy it. After that, he told him to find the shadows. They are the last guardians who have been preparing for such an event for generations. He broke off their relationship the moment he was poisoned to avoid being kidnapped by the demons, but he can do it. The Eternal Shadow, an intelligence organization subordinate to the Emperor, operating from the shadows, which later forms a double wall with the moon eye. The protagonist thought that he can't always rely on personal information from the novel. The more information he gets, the better. Then he answered, of course. The Emperor laughed and said that he is looking forward to it. Those members of the imperial family who pass the succession ceremony are given 2 rewards. MC thought, the first is an audience with the Emperor, and the second is a star dream. With these thoughts, he took out the weapon and made a cut on his palm. Dripping blood, the gate in front of him opened, and he thought, a place where only direct descendants of Agnes can enter. He went inside, and Vela appeared in front of him. She said, welcome to the Starry Dream. She is the keeper of the warehouse. Leaning down, she asked, is he a Prince Xian? The protagonist confirmed this, and she, smiling, said, first of all, she wants to congratulate him on successfully passing the succession ceremony. In this place, he will find all kinds of treasures, the best treasury in the whole world. He can take only one item from here. The protagonist asked, and that's not all, right? She smiled and answered, of course not. But the treasures here are shrouded in myths, legends. They say that weapons themselves choose their owner. If someone who has not chosen the weapon tries to use it, he may die. So will he risk entering? He thought. So she thinks that they may not throw it away. After all, even among the past emperors, there were those who would not have been chosen either. He then told her to lead him. She replied that she understood. If he was not chosen, she would not be held responsible. Walking forward, she asked, impressive, isn't it? Even one treasure from here could cause a massacre in the world. The hero looked ahead and thought, there it is, the sword of heavenly soaring, Rigveda. Reaching his hand out to the hilt of the sword, he thought, one of the 3 mythical class weapons, and the greatest treasure of starry sleep. He then turned his attention to the other sword and thought, Alaxia? How could the sword he used be in the novel? Vela clenched her fists and exclaimed, that sword, His Highness. No, this sword belonged to the first emperor of the Agnes Empire. This cannot be taken. But at that moment, MC already took the sword in his hand. She screamed, be careful. After a while, Regan, with his arms folded, sat in the back seat of the car. Not long before, the 3rd prince asked, and he went through the succession ceremony, and all the leaders were killed. He thinks he will believe it? What about the Knight's Rest? He replied that they are being searched for. Looking out the window, he thought, only a handful of people own blood magic, and nothing can be heard from the bloody tower. Then he noticed the knights running. He asked, what is going on there? The driver replied, it seems that someone is trying to enter the estate through the front gate. They are rushing to help. Regan was surprised. Enter? Through the main entrance? How many are there? He answered, 1, a girl in her 20s. However, getting rid of her is more difficult than expected. He was surprised, alone, something unusual. The driver said that he hadn't seen it himself, so he didn't know for sure, but she seemed to be a medium and used blood magic. And there were some beasts around her. Regan said, blood magic. How many of the capital's citizens could use blood magic? If everything worked out, they might learn something about the Knight's peace. They had to go to the main gate. He had to see it with his own eyes. The driver agreed with him. When the world was plunged into darkness due to the solar eclipse, a meteorite fell from the sky to the earth. No force had any effect on this meteorite, and its surface was shrouded in deep darkness, like a pitch-black aura. Alaxia, a sword that extinguishes light, was made from this meteorite. The protagonist, holding the sword in his hand, thought, this sword, which reflected any force, was only susceptible to the black star. No, it could even strengthen it. Why is it here? And where the hell did the other half of the blade go? Looking at his reflection on the sword, he thought, he will have to find out. Then he said that he chooses it. No problem? Vela answered hesitantly, no, of course not. After that, MC headed for the exit. Meanwhile, the gathered warriors shouted, they must stop her. If necessary, they must finish her off, at any cost, until reinforcements arrive. They must stop her. The warriors rushed to attack, but Lushina attacked them in response, throwing them back. One of the warriors thought a squad of noble knights standing guard at the imperial palace is confronted by some girl. Lushina said in fact she was told to make noise, but it is becoming too troublesome. She continued to attack the knights and added, it is difficult to fight without killing. Then she was surprised when the ground under her feet suddenly rose up. She jumped back and saw a huge stone golem in front of her. The next second, the creature hit the ground. One of the knights shouted in surprise, Sir Regan, he commanded. Knights back. He objected. No. They must at least. The next second, the golem fell apart into many pieces. Lushina, spreading her arms to the sides, asked, and he is quite strong, right? And now she will not hold back. After that, she rose into the air and sent her creatures at him. Regan asked, is she from the Bloody Tower? At the same time, he put up a stone wall in front of him, trying to protect himself from her attacks. She asked, Bloody Tower, what is this? He created fire energy behind him and asked, did she destroy the knight's piece? She replied that she had no idea what he was talking about. He said, this is how. Then he will cut off one of her limbs and ask again. After that, a huge monster head appeared from the fire behind him. Lushina said that this will not stop her. Then the creature began to concentrate energy in its mouth. At that moment, the protagonist said they must stop. Regan was surprised. Zion? He thought, is this man Prince Zion? Unlike the captive prince, he looks more like a natural-born ruler. Has the blood of Agnes awakened in him? Perhaps that is why all attempts to kill him failed. The next second, Lushina descended to the ground and, smiling, waved her hand and asked, Master, why is it taking him so long? Regan thought in surprise, Master? Lushina, looking at the protagonist, asked, is he of royal blood? She did not even know. Regan wondered, is it possible that the culprit of the disappearance of the knight's piece? The next second, the knights bowed and shouted that they welcome His Highness Prince Zion. At this moment, the protagonist said that she would go with him. One of the knights was indignant, but this woman tried to illegally enter the imperial palace. She killed many knights. MC asked, who said that she tried to illegally enter. This woman tried to get into the imperial palace with his official permission. Moreover, he even notified them that she would be arriving today. Who was on duty today and allowed all this mess? And he must say, which murdered knights is he talking about? Lushina, looking over the protagonist's shoulder, said, she tried so hard not to kill everyone. The protagonist said, he believes that there are no more problems. Then the knights bowed and said that they apologize. He looked at Regan seriously and asked, and he bowed and asked, how dare he disobey the will of His Highness? After that, they walked on, and the protagonist said that they should watch their behavior from now on. After some time, Lushina was riding in the backseat of the car. Addressing the protagonist who was sitting next to her, she said that she did as he said, Lord, and when she fought with the knight piece and with the guards at the gate, he answered correctly. It seems that she also dealt with additional tasks. He thought she deliberately left traces of blood magic when she got rid of the Knight's Rest, and did not hide the blood magic in case a fight broke out at the main gate of the Imperial City, so that they would connect his interference with Lushina. Everything was going better than he could have imagined. Regan Ursula, he was the third prince's henchman, the attack on the Guiding Star Palace, the interference in the succession ceremony. There must be a third principle behind these events. He was probably watching the Knight's Rest incident. I wonder how this will turn out. After a while, they arrived at the manor. Fredo bowed and said, he has arrived, His Highness. MC confirmed this, walking forward. Lushina, folding her arms and looking around, asked if this palace was too small for the prince. Priscilla came out on the way and said that they had not seen His Highness for a long time. Before she could finish speaking, she was surprised. A woman? Who was she to stand next to him? Lushina, smiling, said that he was her master, so she was with him. What? She was indignant. Master? At that moment, the protagonist, addressing Fredo, asked why she was here. He answered in his ear. She said, because the engagement termination procedure had not yet been completed. He thought it was an excuse. After that, they went up the stairs, and he said that he asked that she be kindly shown the door. She put her hand forward and asked him to wait. She thought, does she have a reason to cling to the prince? He even announced the termination of their engagement, but strangely enough, she cannot get him out of her mind. She does not like him. Rather, she is curious. She still cannot get rid of the image of that side of Prince Zion. She asked, what is wrong with her? After some time, the protagonist, sitting on the couch at the table, said that he was going to contact the shadows. Fredo, who was sitting opposite him, said, Shadows? May he ask, what shadows exactly is he talking about? Lucina raised her finger and said, shadows are usually called to commit assassination or for reconnaissance, right, Lord? The protagonist confirmed it, the eternal shadows. They are also called the eyes of the Empire, and only the Emperor can control them. The headquarters of the Eternal Shadows is somewhere in the Imperial City. Fredo said, but if it is a secret place, then it must be found. MC confirmed it, but he already knows where they are. He thought that it was clearly stated in the Chronicles of Frozimar. Lucina said, of course, there's nothing he does not know, right, Lord? Fredo asked, does that mean he is going to contact them now? The protagonist replied that this is not so. He will wait for the one who decided to help. After some time in the castle hall, Evelyn folded her arms and thought, this isn't even a state council meeting, but this is the first time she's seen them gather like this. They aren't siblings, they're more like her rivals. The first prince hasn't even come. Why would his majesty suddenly gather them? And then Diana Agnes, the fifth princess, clapped her hands and said, it's been a while, Brother Enoch. His body, like his eyes, is still as gloomy, and his hair is still a mess, right? He turned his gaze to her and said, Diana, and she still stinks, as befits her hybrid species. Is this the problem with all half-breed fairies? She covered her mouth and replied, oh my, of course it isn't. Isn't that the smell of his disgusting hobbies, brother? Come to think of it, how is that business going? She's talking about his passion for destroying the younger ones. How is it lately? Enoch said, that idiot is the shame of the imperial family. His mere presence would tarnish the honor of the imperial family. If he understood his insignificance, he would die right now. The next second, the fourth prince Utikan laughed and folded his arms across his chest and said, and yet Zion, that same idiot, went through the succession ceremony. He now saw him in a new light. Diana laughed and said, he had definitely exceeded her expectations as well. Honestly, she had never thought that their younger brother would participate in the succession ceremony, but who would have thought that he would pass the succession ceremony that was interfered with? Enoch glared at her and muttered, even so, it was all in vain. Even though he had passed the ceremony, there was nothing he could do. It would still be difficult for him to live here in the White Star Palace. He should know his place so that he could live longer. Evelyn said he had changed. She walked forward and folded her arms and added, even she was surprised by the change in his behavior lately. He is no longer as helpless as he thinks. Enoch chuckled, right? He came close to her and asked, should they make a bet then? How long can he last in the White Star Palace? At this moment, the protagonist walked into the hall and said that they were also very interested in how long he could last here. As Lucina walked forward, she thought, is this the Zion family? Enoch chuckled. The White Star Palace has definitely lowered its standards. Who would have thought that he would meet him here? Utikan laughed, putting his hand on his shoulder, and told him not to be so harsh, brother. Zion also went through the succession ceremony fairly, so he has the right to be in this place. Doesn't he agree? Diana smiled and said that it is true, brother. Maybe he is just too narrow-minded, she thought. It seems like he really has changed. Well, even so, it won't change anything. But this ominous energy is a little disturbing, although, unlike the other relatives, he is not a threat to her. Evelyn walked up to the protagonist and noticed that he was late. He replied, something just happened, and then he looked at the empty throne and thought, the Emperor still hasn't shown up? Even if he can find the shadows, they might be hard to deal with, so he will help him. And gathering here today has something to do with this help. At this moment, Lucina looked over his shoulder and called out, Lord, aren't all these people his enemies? Shouldn't he kill them since this is an opportunity? He thought, the people gathered here are so strong that there are few who can stand against them all by themselves. Enough to strengthen Lucina's desire, he shouldn't have brought her along. The next second, Utikan snapped his fingers and folded his arms and said, it seems like father is still late. Isn't it boring for them to just wait for him here? How about some light sparring to pass the time? He was curious to see how strong Zion was, if he could even pass the succession ceremony. Diana folded her arms and said with a smile that was a good idea. She also wanted to see how their youngest had changed. He asked, really? But he thought Zion would be extremely tough against them. Why didn't he warm up on their guys first? Enoch smiled and said that it sounded good. He would be the first to suggest an opponent. Zion? He wouldn't mind, would he? Evelyn asked indignantly. What the hell were they doing? MC said, of course. He thought if they wanted a show, they would get it. He added, but he didn't agree to a regular sparring. They would fight for real. Evelyn was indignant. What was he talking about? Utikan laughed and said, of course, that's the spirit of a real man. Hey, they should clear the center. Evelyn leaned towards her brother and said that he better refuse before it was too late. He can't handle Enoch's men. They are too strong. Lucina raised her finger and agreed. Right, sir? He should just leave it to her. She will do it herself. Enoch approached his subordinate and told him to just make sure he doesn't die. He replied, but he's a prince. Is that even a request? He asked in return, what can they do? He wanted a real fight, so he should do as he said. Then Utikan said, so they are starting. Evelyn asked, maybe he should try to stop them after all? Lucina said, how she wanted to kill him. Then Evelyn was surprised. What? Blood was dripping from the protagonist's hand. Enoch looked at his subordinate's head that flew towards him in surprise, and he said, what the? He thought that he didn't use any magic or special technique. At the same time, he was so fast that the enemy didn't even have time to properly react. After that, the protagonist said he wanted a real fight. At that moment, Enoch ran up to him and raising his fist, shouted, oh, he's an idiot! Then one of the brothers shouted, His Majesty the Emperor has arrived. Those present bowed and said that they welcomed His Majesty the Emperor. The Emperor walked forward and asked, "What's going on here?" Enoch tried to answer, but he told him to put it away. After which, he sat down on the throne. Evelyn, continuing to bow, asked how his health was. He asked in return, "Does he look healthy?" The whole time he didn't show his face, so she couldn't know. Well, they won't talk about that. They'll get straight to the point. The reason he gathered them all here is to choose a successor, which he's already done. The protagonist thought, "Just no." The Emperor said, "His successor will be Zion." The protagonist thought, "Was that what he planned all along? How interesting. In fact, he would be closer to becoming the next emperor, and dealing with the eternal shadows would be even easier then." The problem was whether the other princes and princesses would accept this decision. Enoch waved his hand and shouted indignantly, "Father, what did this mean?" Uticon asked, "Did he really just appoint this idiot as his successor?" Diana exclaimed, "It can't be. His Highness, doesn't he know?" Putting her hand to her chest, she added about Zion's place in the royal palace and how the people were treating him. His Majesty, he was the one who locked him in the Guiding Star Palace in the first place. Utekan added, he had obeyed his orders so far, but he couldn't accept this decision. Evelyn asked if she could ask why he had chosen him. The Emperor replied, because he considered him the most suitable to be the next emperor out of them all. Enoch countered, he couldn't accept it. No, he would never accept it. Diana thought, His Majesty has already made up his mind. He cannot be dissuaded, so she must. Then she said, she understands. They must respect His Majesty's will. Enoch shouted indignantly, Diana, what is she? She added, but he must allow her to suggest one thing. Everyone in this palace knows what Zion is called. The deposed prince, the cowardly monarch, the disgrace of Agnes. In a word, nothing good. Until now, he lived up to these nicknames. Maybe he has changed, but only recently, and few people know about it. And what will happen if he suddenly declares him his successor under all circumstances? Even if they all agree, their people will be categorically against it. Questions will arise, discontent, and even a rebellion is possible. The Emperor asked, well, why not give him a chance? Someone asked again, a chance? Diana put her hand to her chest and said, a chance to prove that he is a worthy heir. 7 great disasters, rebellion, disputes, monsters with transcendental powers, and so on. Now the Empire is in danger. The greatest disasters are happening in it. Diana said, this is a test that he must pass to become emperor. If Zion succeeds, the rebellion will be suppressed, and they will be able to find allies. MC frowned and thought he assumed that this could happen. Enoch said that it was a good idea. Uticon laughed and said he also completely agreed with Diana. Zion replied, that is very good. If he still has to do it, then it is a sin not to take such a chance. He will show people what he is capable of, but next time they will all show him what they are worth. After a while, Zion trained and thought. All week he trained and studied Eclaxia. In this state, it will be difficult to use Eclaxia in real combat. If he wants to pass the test, he needs the other half of the sword. He can manifest it with the Black Star, but this body at this stage will not be able to maintain it for too long. Fortunately, he can still use other effects. Storing and strengthening the Black Star, if he uses these 2 effects, he will be able to strengthen the Black Star quickly and effectively. Zion thought that what he needs to improve now is his physical strength and the absolute quality of energy. If he uses Eclaxia, he will not be able to cause a solar eclipse, but maybe he can try to cause a lunar eclipse at least. Since this technique greatly affects the body, he almost never used it even in his past life. But the current Zion needs this technique. He closed his eyes and decided, they will see. He activated his mana and opened his eyes. He looked at the lunar eclipse and then said that this is enough. He looked at his reflection in the tip of the sword and said, something bigger will start to kill his body. Zion thought that he could use the lunar eclipse. That was good. He spoke. Now it was his turn to look into the eyes of the Empire. After a while, Diana sat at the table and thought, Zion Agnes, he has definitely changed. He is still not at the level where one could start to worry, but he already makes one wonder. She said that she will need to find out more about her younger brother. She ordered to focus on the latest events, not the past. They should find out as many details as possible. What about finding the eye? The guy nodded his head and said, they only found a tail, nothing more. Diana tapped her finger on the table and said, the tail. She suggested setting this tail on fire. She smirked and thought, even if they have to cut it off or completely dissect the body. Diana wondered what would happen. After a while, MC walked down the hallway past the busts and thought, this is the first time he sees the palace so empty. There were not as many emperors in the past as he thought. Zion paused and thought, so this is the Eternal Emperor, the first emperor of the Agnes Empire in the novel, and the one who united the world according to the myths. His name is Aurelian Khan of Agnes. Isn't that his name when he was the emperor? He had been waiting for this since he found Eclaxia in the Star Dream, but his name appeared here just like the Agnes Empire in the novel. If not, he needed more clues. Suddenly, a voice came from behind him. The Eternal Emperor, the founder of this empire, and the one who united their world, hating any mention of him. This portrait is here for show. In reality, it has no meaning. Thierry smiled and said, she's glad to meet him. His Highness, Prince Zion. Her name is Thierry Ilonis. She's the custodian of this museum of Agnes history. She didn't expect His Highness to be interested in the history of the Agnes royal family. The other family members don't come here anymore, MC replied. He also thinks there's almost nothing to see here. Thierry laughed and said that she agreed, but she believed that this was not just a place where the things of the past emperors were kept, but also a place where they could learn more about their lives and draw their own conclusions from what they left behind. Zion wondered, is that right? Then he wanted to ask something. The eternal shadows. He wanted to know about the Emperor's shadows. Thierry smiled and said, shadows? Is he talking about a secret organization? The Emperor could definitely support such organizations. MC frowned and said, she was pretending to be innocent. The Emperor's eyes and the best in the Empire, the last organization with information. Thierry Ilonis, aka the leader of the Eternal Shadows. Thierry turned around and ordered him to follow her. She walked to the wall and put her hand on it, activating the seal. She said, to be honest, once the Emperor appointed him as his heir, she suspected that he would be able to come here, because there was no other reason why he appointed him so suddenly. They walked on, and Thierry said, His Highness, Prince Zion. They are the most secret organization, the excellent eyes of the Empire. They only obey the orders of the Emperor, and yet they reserve the right to refuse an order if it jeopardizes the prosperity of the Empire. They had been studying him longer than he could imagine, but his recent changes and actions were hard to understand even for them. Thierry said, his actions were impossible based on what they had managed to find out about him. His Highness, Prince Zion, he said that he came for the shadows, right? Then he needs to prove himself first. She turned around and said, that Zion Agnes, who has no evil in him. Swords were aimed at MC, and he smirked and said, that's interesting. He jumped to the side, and the swords hit the floor. Zion looked around and thought, are these knights? No, they are golems created by a very complex spell. Although he has no idea why the Eternal Shadows would use golems, this makes things easier. The golems moved towards Zion, and he quickly dodged and put his hand in front of him. He activated the seal and sent it towards the golem, which fell to the floor. At that moment, in the other room, there were magicians, to whom Thierry ran up and asked, well, what's going on? The guy told her to go and see for herself. At that moment, in the hall, MC was fighting the golems, defeating one after another. Thierry widened her eyes in surprise and thought, why is this so easy for him? The golem's defense is on par with the Imperial Knights. Zion looked towards her and said, there it is. He activated his mana and sent it towards her, and she thought, is this the Heavenly Star Sea? No, this is something completely different. A bright flash headed towards the magicians, when suddenly a scream was heard. A barrier. MC destroyed the barrier and went to meet Thierry. He spoke. She said to show yourself. Thierry said in fear. It shattered into pieces. MC appeared behind her and said, but he doesn't have to do this, but they should have been more careful about themselves. He grabbed the girl by the neck and began to channel mana into her body. Zion thought, in the novel, the Eternal Shadows were disbanded before the war began, because of the demons hiding inside the Eternal Shadows. Thierry asked in fear, is this demonic energy? Like demons. Half of the girl's body turned into a monster and she screamed. He's an idiot. MC took out his sword and Thierry said, this sword. Zion slashed at the demon and he said it was useless. MC thought, as he thought, the Eclaxia was greatly harming his body. All that remains is, suddenly Thierry knelt down and said, Thierry Ilonis, the leader of the Eternal Shadows. She welcomes the successor of the Eternal. Zion looked at the members of the Eternal Shadows, puzzled. Eternal Shadows, as the name suggests, they were formed by the Eternal Emperor. They served many emperors after his death, but it was to serving the Eternal Emperor that they were willing to dedicate their lives. They were waiting for the Eternal Emperor's successor to appear and take over their rule. After a while, MC asked, so, he is the Eternal Emperor's successor? Thierry asked, not to deny it. Didn't His Majesty use Eclaxia? Until now, Eclaxia was only subordinate to the Eternal Emperor. All the shadows know this. If His Majesty Prince Zion wields the extinguishing sword, it's rather strange to deny the obvious. Zion thought about it. On the other hand, there's nothing wrong with that. After all, it saved him time and effort. He said he would give out a list. They do understand that this was not the only demon that infiltrated the shadows, right? The list will contain the names of the demons hiding in this place. They just need to remember it and be on guard. Thierry replied yes. She asked to report on the current situation of the shadows. After a while, Zion said, if we start with the general information, the situation is like this. Thierry said in a puzzled tone, and there is one problem that is causing concern. Not long ago, Her Highness Princess Diana discovered one of their branches. Usually in such a case, they just get rid of the branch, as if cutting off the tail, but this time they failed. Since they are a small elite group, they are constantly short of people, and when they checked His Highness, they created golems because they lack human resources. So giving up a whole unit would cause a lot of trouble gathering information. They need time to cover their tracks and flush out everyone from that unit. The problem is, it looks like Princess Diana will strike before they do. MC wondered, so they need to buy time, right? He said he'll handle it. By a lucky chance, he has the right person for it. After a while, the knights were running down the street of the city, and Lucina was standing on the roof watching them. After a while, MC was sitting on the couch in the room, when suddenly a scream was heard. Sir, she's back. Lucina ran up to him and asked, did he find himself another slave while she was gone? Thierry looked at her and thought, that woman. MC asked, How did it go? Lucina happily answered. She killed everyone, as he ordered, and she even left a trace. She sat down on the chair next to him and asked, "But sir, does it really matter? Will they fall for it?" Zion replied. Diana Agnes, a cynic. She only distrusts what she sees. People who think they are smart don't listen to others. She'd rather focus on the 1% hidden lie than the 99% obvious truth. Thierry asked, "This trail will lead to the third prince, right?" MC replied, "That's right. They don't get along well enough already, so they'll just take advantage of it." He wondered, in the future, it would be easier to get rid of the third prince. Today would serve as a starting point. In the future, he'll be able to manipulate her for his own gain. Zion put his cup away and asked, "Who brewed this coffee?" Fredo immediately asked for forgiveness. It was brewed by a new servant recently accepted into the palace of the guiding star. He screamed in fear, "It's not poisoned, right?" MC replied with displeasure, "It just doesn't taste good." Fredo understood and said that he would brew new coffee right away. MC thought about it. In his world there was no such drink, so this is his only pleasure here. New servant, did they send another spy? Thierry said, "She will dig into the background of the servants who recently came to the palace of the guiding star." Zion folded his arms and thought. He did not care who they were or how strong they were. After a while, the girl met the servant and said, "It is surprising how with such a face he has not been caught yet." The servant replied, "He does not need to make faces even in front of her." The girl folded her arms and said, "That is true. So what did he want then?" It seems that the meeting was not noticed. The servant replied, "He lost contact with Dakarn. He thinks she is dead." The girl asked again, "Dakarn? That is strange. How did this happen?" The servant replied, "He is still trying to figure it out. And it's not just that. The signals from some of the subordinates are also cut off." As if. The girl chuckled and asked, "Is someone hunting them?" The servant replied, "Zion Agnes, not counting Dakarn. Most of those whose signal he stopped picking up were close to Zion Agnes." The girl chuckled and asked, "The exiled imperial prince? Perhaps they should take a closer look at him." The servant turned around and said, "Then he'll leave it to her." The girl wondered, "This is getting pretty interesting, huh?" After a while, Diana was sitting in the office and asking what he just said. The guy folded his hands behind his back and replied, "The 6th Battalion heading towards the Shadow Unit was routed." Diana squeezed the mug, which broke in her hand. She asked again, "Routed? Did he just say, routed?" She thought, "Gracia. This is one of the best military units in the Empire, ranking first in strength even among the elementalist units. And it wasn't just damaged by the clash, but was completely destroyed?" Diana slammed her fist on the table and asked, "What happened to the branch? If everyone on their side was killed, then they couldn't have left without losses either." The guy replied, "Judging by the evidence, the 6th Battalion didn't even go inside. Traces of a fierce battle and the bodies of the battalion members were found outside, right at the entrance of the building. Those traces didn't lead inside, meaning they all died right there, fighting the enemy." Diana clenched her jaw and asked, "A trap? Did the shadows plan this from the beginning? Did she fall into a trap? She? Diana Agnes?" The guy added, "And there were clear traces of blood magic at the scene. They were also informed that the woman who recently joined Prince Zion was a blood magic user." Diana asked again, "Is he talking about the woman in the throne room?" The guy replied, "Yes, she is the only blood mage active in the capital recently." Diana said, "The circumstantial evidence does indicate that this is Zion's doing. But isn't it all just too perfect?" She thought as if she was being forced to suspect Zion. Why did Zion target Gracia in the first place? She wondered if there were any other clues. The guy replied, "Yes, but only crumbs. In addition to traces of blood magic and elemental techniques, they found traces of a summoning technique." Diana screamed, "That's it! The real culprit is the person using the summoning technique. Who else in the capital uses the summoning technique and is strong enough to destroy the 6th Battalion?" The guy started listing Regan Ursula from the 3rd Prince faction and the summoning magic tower. Diana interrupted him and screamed, "Enoch! So that's how he decided, huh?" After a while, the servant said that they would take care of everything according to his orders until he returned. MC replied, "Okay." Lucina folded her hands behind her head and spoke. She didn't think that they would leave the capital so soon. They just arrived. "What does he think, Lord?" After a while, they got off the carriage, where they were greeted by people. They talked among themselves. They mean to say that these two will cope with the disaster? Yes, they are crazy. Are they so aloof just because they stopped at the Imperial City? Did they choose the hard way because they can't deal with this first? Lucina walked up to MC and asked, "Lord, should she kill them?" Regan said, "His Highness, Prince Zion. Is he leaving already? He feels like his strength won't be enough to cope with the disaster. But he believes that His Highness can handle it." He frowned and wished him luck. Zion remembered Thierry's words that the 3rd Prince, or rather his confidant Regan Ursula, was suspicious of the source of his power. MC wondered, was he here to see for himself? Then he would show him what he came for. MC replied, "And good luck to him." Regan's eyes widened in confusion, and Zion turned away and ordered to go. He was answered, "Yes, sir." At this moment, Evelyn was watching Zion and Leoshina from the window, and she ordered the Ashlion unit to be sent to monitor them, follow Zion and protect him. After a while, Enoch frowned and asked, So he thought Zion had black magic? Regan replied, yes. Enoch frowned and asked, was he sure about it? Regan replied, 90%. Everyone knows that Prince Zion was weak. He couldn't hurt a fly before, but suddenly he changes and takes someone else's life without blinking an eye. The unknown power of Prince Zion, the darkness surrounding him and that ominous aura. Black magic. No, it's impossible to change that much without getting mixed up with demons. He thought about it. He clearly remembered. For just a split second, his eyes were swallowed by dark energy. Enoch asked again, he knows how serious this statement is, right? Demonic energy. It's the source of black magic. Witchcraft. It's the source of demonic energy. Borrowing power from demons. It means becoming an enemy of humanity. What would happen if the direct heir of the imperial family accepted demonic power? Regan thought the authority of the entire imperial family would be at rock bottom. However, this makes it possible to get rid of Zion without any problem. Enoch asked, does he have a plan? Regan put his hand to his chest and answered, of course. They will send a group of bandits after him. They will not be caught. After a while, Lucina asked, sir, is he hungry? Why did they come here? Does he want to eat first? MC pulled the hood over his head and replied, he is not hungry, but he wants to order something. They went inside where the waiter met them and said they were waiting for them. He asked them to follow him. MC asked, will a knife be thrown at him like last time? The waiter replied, that will not happen. Lucina said, so they really are not here for food. The men went ahead, and she ran after and asked them to wait for her. After a while, they went down to the basement where Aileen met them and bowed. She greeted His Highness Prince Zion. MC took off the hood and asked, does he look exactly the same as last time? But this time she recognized him. Aileen replied, if they still did not know who he was, then they had no right to bear the title of Information Guild. So what brought him here? Zion asked a question. There's only one reason. Does not she think so? Aileen folded her hands on the table and spoke. If it was related to the Ghost Legion, they couldn't tell anything. MC interrupted her and replied, he already knew everything he needed. Aileen's eyes widened in confusion and asked, what? He already knew? What was he talking about? MC thought he even knew where they would strike next. The hero and his squad were originally supposed to solve this problem, but he wasn't going to give them all the credit. Zion handed over a piece of paper and said he wanted them to investigate something. Before he returned to the Imperial City, they needed to find out everything they could about the people on that list, down to the smallest detail. Aileen's eyes widened and she asked, is this the Bright Star Council? Aren't they the most powerful people after the Emperor? He's not making a list of future victims, right? MC said he wasn't sure. The more information they could gather, the better. Aileen said okay. Zion said, also, who was the informant they sent to him last time? Aaron said, when he said informant, did he mean Nari? MC said yes. Have them send her to him this time too. He might have another request. Aileen stood up from the table and said okay. Before they get off topic, did their trip to the Black Forest go well? MC turned around and thought, the forest was cleared overnight and only 2 people know what happened there. He said, yes, thanks to them. Lucina peeked out from behind him and asked, are they leaving? Aileen thought, the red-eyed woman who had been accompanying him since his return to the Imperial City. She widened her eyes in surprise and thought, let them just not tell her that the 1,000-year-old witch is alive. MC put a finger to his lips and said, that's right. It will be bad for them if they find out too much. A while ago on the battlefield, a boy was crawling on the ground and saying, Commander, he has a request. He asked him to stop sacrificing himself to protect others. He is asking him to live. The commander looked at him and then looked up and asked if he should resign. The boy ran up to Liam and asked the Ajushi to teach him swordsmanship. Liam looked at him and said, stop bothering him. Let him mind his own business. The commander said that he would pay him. He asks him to teach him how to wield a sword. Come on, please. After a while, he was happily running along the path and saying, cool. He can show him a few moves with a sword. He needs to get stronger quickly. He thought, a peaceful village, weak and poor, and no one guards it at all. The man grabbed the girl by the hair, and the boy screamed in fear. Mom, Mommy. He held his head and thought he hated living in this powerless village, where even a group of thieves can't be stopped. He clenched his fists and said, he must become strong. He will become strong and leave this village. Suddenly, MC and Lucina passed by him, and he asked, are they strangers? At that moment, Liam was tending a bed and thinking, he looks like her. They really are related. He kept wondering if they could meet. Suddenly, he turned around and saw Zion, thinking, are these strangers? The color of his hair? Is he from an imperial family? Liam stood up and asked, who are they? Lucina asked happily, sir, should she kill him? Zion replied, no, his name, Zion Agnes. Liam looked away and thought, is this man the pureblood who was abandoned? The rumors are lying. Or has he been hiding his true self all this time? Liam wondered, what brought them here? MC replied, he would get straight to the point. He offered him to serve him. Liam asked, does he think he will agree? MC replied, this village will die soon. If he serves him, he will save him and this village. Liam looked at him carefully, then looked down and said, he refuses, not because he doesn't believe him. Even if the village might die, they can just avoid it. Zion said, very good. He turned around and started to walk away and Lucina asked, what? Wasn't he going to subjugate him? She didn't think he would let it go that easily. If he was going to do that, why didn't he ask her to kill him? Is he really going to give up? Zion replied, Heroes are born, or are they made? Lushina asked. Why did he suddenly bring that up? Zion replied. He believes that a hero's fate is decided the moment he is born. That means he won't be able to resist in the end. Lushina said, that means that guy. MC rushed to the side and said, but before that, they should get rid of that rat first. He saw a shadow and pierced the bandit's body with his hand. Lushina licked her lips and screamed. How she waited for him to say those words. The bandits attacked them and the man ordered them to be destroyed. MC activated his mana and asked, who said that? He approached the girl and eliminated her, and the bandit screamed in annoyance. He's an idiot. Zion used dark eyes and shattered the blade with one touch. The boy asked in confusion, what? MC struck the next one, and the bandit thought, is this guy really the Zion Agnes he knows? They need to get out of here. Zion Agnes, he will remember this. He clutched the shining sphere in his hand, and Zion asked, are they going somewhere? He created several seals, blocking the boy in this one. He struck the puzzled bandit and said, he never thought they would attack like this. Of course, he expected this outcome. His relatives dream of him failing this test like no one else. Moon Eye's special informant Nari looked around and said, these people have their forces concentrated elsewhere. They are waiting nearby and will soon attack the village. At that moment, the boy ran along the forest road and thought, no, he needs to warn them quickly. He remembered the words about those people having their forces elsewhere, and they would attack the village soon. He ran and thought, please, please. He didn't want this to happen again. He needed to warn the villagers. At that moment, Nari was pointing at the map and saying here, here, and here, and in 3 more places. High enough to overlook the entire village of Kurd, and yet be invisible from the lowlands, right? MC replied yes. Nari wondered, but why did he ask her to investigate these places in particular? Zion walked to the side and said from now on they would act according to the agreed plan. Mushina asked, sir, what about the village? She said it would be attacked soon. Zion replied, first the plan, and there was someone who would hold it for them. At that moment, the demons were standing on the mountain asking if he was there. Cainless asked, that was unexpected, right? Who would have thought the Ghost King would live in such a place after retiring? The demon Cainless said, foolish imperial ants. Not only did they disregard authority, but they also treated him like this. The demoness replied, she heard that he resigned of his own accord and came here. Well, that's good news for them. It will be much easier for them to kill him. Cainless thought, this is an order from one of the 5 demon spirits, the ones who command all the monsters in the empire. This will be a success. Originally, they were no match for the Ghost King, but with this, history will change. The coordinates to summon the Ghost Legion. Cainless smiled and said, even the Ghost King won't be able to stand against an entire army on his own. The demon folded his arms and said, he heard that Imperial Prince Zion chose the Ghost Legion's disaster to prove that he is a worthy heir. The demoness asked, that hostage prince? She asked him not to say that he really believes that he can handle them. How confident he is. They will leave him to the Ghost Legion. He will not be able to stand against them. The demon spread his arms out and said, maybe he did not think to deal with the disaster. He heard that MC only took one subject with him when he left the Imperial Palace. They have no idea where the Ghost Legion will appear, so for him, this is the perfect excuse. He will not come even if they give him the coordinates. The demon turned around and said, he thinks they should be more careful with Prince Zion. Do they know that an order was received regarding Zion Agnes? The demoness asked. What is the order? The demon replied, to add him to the list of those to be watched. He came shortly after he left the Imperial Palace. There was a scream. What? Why? The demon replied, he thinks the disappearance of the demons that were in the Imperial Palace has something to do with Zion Agnes. Cainless turned around and asked, so the prince is hunting demons? The demon folded his arms and replied, yes, it was possible. It was hard to believe, but it was true. Prince Zion must have known about their existence a long time ago. Cainless said that couldn't be true. Suddenly a voice interrupted him. He was curious about something. The demon's body was pierced through, and MC said he thought he had eliminated all information leaks about him. So how did they know all this? The boy ran to the village and saw a fire and bandits beating people and ordering them to kill everyone. The townspeople begged for their lives. The boy burst into tears, asking, why was this happening again? He remembered the man grabbing his mother by the hair and thought, no, he can't lose the village again. He grabbed the pickaxe with both hands and ordered him to take his hands off. You idiot. The man grabbed him by the throat and lifted him into the air, asking, who the hell is this idiot? The bandit smirked and said, look at those eyes. He can kill someone with that look. He likes it. First, he will poke out his eyes. The boy cried and thought, in the end, he just wanted to protect the village. At that moment, an order was given to close his eyes, and the boy's eyes widened even more. Liam ran up and punched the bandit and then turned around slightly and remembered the words of his subordinate, who asked him not to sacrifice himself for others anymore. He clenched his fist and asked him to forgive him, but he can't fulfill his request. A while ago, the demoness asked in an irritated voice, who is he? The demon turned around and said, this is Zion Agnes. This man is Zion Agnes. Cainless wondered, how did he get here? Does he know who they are? Or even what they are planning? And also, what kind of power is this? One thing is for sure, he is not the disgrace to the family they have heard so much about. MC began to spread his mana, and the demons thought that they should swat him. Zion carefully examined them and thought, they are definitely different. Their strength is on a completely different level than the other demons. Right now, he can only defeat the two of them. What should he do? The demons rushed towards him, and he said that he had no other choice. He wanted to preserve this as much as possible. Mystical weapons contain the power of their owner and transmit it, greatly multiplying it. He took out his sword and thought, then they will see how much his power differs from Eclaxia, the light-extinguishing sword, in his hands and without it. He used Black Flash and swung his sword. The demoness asked in surprise, "What?" Zion made another attack towards the demons and said, he will start with the first one. The demon turned around and told the demoness to watch out. She looked towards him in surprise, and MC had already pierced her body with the sword. She screamed loudly, and the other demons rushed towards him. Zion thought, he needs to end this quickly. He will be able to hold the blade for about 10 minutes, but he can't stay in this place for so long. The real game is just beginning. He has 2 minutes left. That's how much time he can devote to this place. The demon extended his hand and said that he would not fall for the same trick twice. He activated his mana and fired it towards MC, and Caneless swung his huge fist and threw it towards the misty stream. He smirked and thought, at this rate. At that moment, the mana dissipated, and MC stood motionless in the center of it. Caneless screamed in fear. How is he? MC moved behind him and asked, is he going somewhere? The demon turned around and thought in fear, no, he can dodge this. He put his hand forward, when suddenly MC cut it off. The demon screamed in fear. Caneless! He fired his mana towards Zion, and he thought, the light-extinguishing sword neutralizes demonic energy when it touches it, but it can't cut through all these tentacles. It doesn't matter though. He used Dark Stream. Wild Form approached the demon and dealt a lethal blow. Caneless looked at it and thought, what kind of horror is this? That sinister sword swallowed up all the light around it at once, but Prince Zion's strange power was like impenetrable darkness. It was definitely not the power of the heavenly star sea like the Agnes Imperial family. Where did he get this power from? Even among the monsters that were infamous for their boundless killing intent, there was no one who possessed such terrifying power. No, there was one. He was not a creature of evil, but he had similar power. It was the Eternal Emperor Aurelian Khan Agnes. If this was true, then he needed to warn the higher-ups immediately. At this moment, blood started pouring out from his hands, and he thought, terrible, at this rate, he'll really die. MC charged towards Caneless, and he thought, as he thought, it is, he said, Zion Agnes, let him try to dodge it. He used Phantom Legion and a tall pillar of light appeared behind him. Zion looked at him and thought he was probably planning to steal the coordinates of the Ghost Legion before they showed up, but he would never allow it. MC swung his sword and said he was waiting for him to summon them. After a while, Liam ran up and punched the bandit, and the boy thought, this guy? Is that Liam's uncle? At that moment, the leader of the Red Hat, Yuquan, asked, what's going on here? Who is that? The guy replied, the Ghost King. Yuquan asked in confusion, the Ghost King? Is that Liam Raynor? He thought, the captain of the Demon Extermination Squad, one of the surviving heroes who put an end to the fight against the demons. Yuquan frowned in annoyance and thought, the horror. He didn't know he would have to deal with this. They were only told to destroy a small village. It's too late to run away. He grabbed his spear in annoyance and screamed, terrible idiot. He rushed towards Liam and ordered him to die. Liam clenched his fist and thrust it towards the tip of the spear. Yuquan's body exploded, and Liam turned around and said the boy screamed, uncle. Why didn't he teach him swordsmanship? He's so strong. Liam smirked and replied, he already told him he can't swordsmanship. He narrowed his eyes and thought, Prince Zion said that the village would die. He didn't warn him because of a couple of mercenaries. Then what a horror. Suddenly the red sky was covered with dark clouds, and the boy screamed, uncle. Liam looked up and said, he thought, this is a barrier. This one is so high level that he can't even understand the nature of it. And it's so huge, he can't feel anything outside of it. The village has been isolated. Liam said, a ghost legion. He thought, cursed by the ancient god Kronos, doomed to exist forever. An army of the living dead. He alone can't stop them, unless he ascends to heaven. Otherwise, he will never be able to stop the legion by himself. Did Prince Zion know about this disaster from the beginning? The people saw the dead and screamed, we must run. Where? Oh God. They asked him to save them. Liam ordered the boy to stand here, and he screamed, uncle. Liam walked forward and thought he must protect them. Suddenly he was asked to wait, and he turned around. Behind Liam stood Lucina, saying, he is not allowed to take someone else's loot. If that, she's been waiting for this moment for so long. Lucina walked forward, and Liam wondered what she was doing here. It doesn't look like she can handle it by herself. Lucina walked past him and waved her hand. She said she can handle it. And who said she is alone? Suddenly dark energy burst out of her body, and dark animals appeared. Liam looked at it in surprise, and Lucina said, she will destroy them all. The animals rushed towards the dead and began to destroy the barrier, when suddenly MC jumped into the hole in it. Zion thought, even from here he feels incredible energy. No wonder they are considered one of the 7 disasters. In the Frozomar Chronicles, the hero destroyed the Ghost Legion along with his comrades, and he has no comrades. Lucina commanded the animals and laughed joyfully. She ordered them to die and the animals to kill them all. Zion thought, but he was well prepared for the attack of the Ghost Legion. He has the Witch of Heavenly Slaughter, Lucina Bloodwalker. MC looked towards the monsters and thought, where are they from? He found it. Different energy and aura, not like the others. A creature whose presence is felt from afar. This idiot leads the Ghost Legion. The king cursed by Kronos. He is his target. Lucina dealt with the dead and laughed joyfully. She said she was just delighted. It was not for nothing that she followed him, Lord. MC replied, they still need something. Lucina thought about it and said that she understood. First, she will clear the way. She raised her hand up and began to create an energy flow. She directed it towards the dead and incinerated their bodies. Lucina screamed, Lord. Zion mounted his black horse and rushed forward. He thought, there was only one reason he forced them to summon the Ghost Legion. He was heading there himself. This is the only way to obtain the Kronos weapon. The owner of the coordinate for summoning the Legion must directly participate in the battle. This is the first condition for obtaining Kronos. He struck the dead and activated his dark eyes. He thought, he just needs to stop those who targeted his weak points and deal with the rest. He whipped his horse and thought, faster. He gripped the hilt of the sword and swung it and thought, black dot. He touched the tip of the enemy's sword with his sword, and it was destroyed. Zion said, go ahead. He activated darkness and then the force back. The spirits headed towards him and MC used black flash. He thought, this should be enough to instantly tear them apart. He created an energy mace and approached the dead, swung it. He approached the enemy and smirked slightly. The battle with the Dark Knight began, whose sword split into several pieces, and MC swung again. The Dark Knight activated his mana, releasing it into the sword, and Zion thought, concentrate the black star in Eclaxia. He activated black flash and evaporated, and the Dark Knight looked around in confusion. MC tried to strike him from behind, but he failed. He pushed away from him and somersaulted in the air thought, and he again approached the monster and swung his sword. Zion hit the enemy's helmet with his sword and then decided to dodge. The Dark Knight said that he would not lose to him. He pushed him aside and spoke. He was waiting for this battle. He waited with the hope that this endless punishment would finally end. But why? Why is he so weak? Zion looked at him with displeasure and thought, there was definitely a huge gap between their powers. Even when he strengthened the Black Star, the attack didn't go through. He doesn't know if raising the Black Star to the 3rd level will do anything, but he's too strong now. Even resorting to immortal powers isn't enough. That means he only has one choice. MC gripped the hilt of his sword and created a large black flash. At this moment, Karen asked, Prince Zion came all the way here? The guy replied, they need to keep going. The captain of the 5th unit of the Ash Lion squad, Karen frowned and said, he followed him because that was Princess Evelyn's order. But to think that the Ash Lion squad has the duty to look after the captured prince. Paulo, the vice captain of the 5th unit of the Ash Lion squad, laughed and said, still, it's nice to leave the capital for a while for such a peaceful scenery. He said to enjoy this view. Karen said, Paulo, he's too calm. Suddenly, Paulo's eyes widened in surprise and said, this, Captain, this can't be. Karen ordered the 5th unit of the Ash Lion squad to approach the barrier. At this moment, the Dark Knight was fighting MC and looked at him in confusion. He swung his sword when suddenly MC used Lunar Eclipse. In an instant, all the Black Star energy concentrated in the body explodes and the abilities overcome the limits. This is one of Zion's best techniques, the best amplifier. MC swung his sword and struck the Dark Knight. He blocked, and Zion said that he wanted to ask something. So which one of them is weaker now? He sent his mana towards him and disappeared. At this moment, the knights were standing near the barrier. Paulo asked, it was more difficult, right? Karen said, so they didn't even fight giants. Paulo said thoughtfully, usually barriers like this are used to lock in what's inside, so it should be more vulnerable on the outside. He thought, Prince Zion is definitely locked in there, or maybe he's already dead. At that moment, the order was given for everyone to disperse. Karen swung his sword and thought, this is not enough. Again, he swung again and thought, he needs to concentrate all his strength. From his blow, a crack appeared on the barrier, and Paulo shouted, now, we need to break through the crack and not let the barrier recover. The knights began to hit the barrier with their swords, and soon broke through it. Karen entered inside and said, great, they got inside. The knights stopped and looked around in confusion. Karen asked, what kind of monsters are those? His eyes widened in surprise as he saw MC off to the side, who was fighting the Dark Knight. The Dark Knight looked in surprise at MC, who was quickly striking him. He asked, how dare he? Zion struck him and wounded him, and the knight decided that he would not let it go that easily. MC said, it won't work this time. He swung his sword again and grabbed the Dark Knight by the helmet. He hit him with his knee and thought, there is about a minute left. He needs to make it. Zion swung his sword and the knight thought he suddenly became stronger. Although a few moments ago he was inferior to him. This power, his black sword, and the alien darkness that permeates his body, maybe he really is. The knight created an energy flow, and Zion covered his face with his hand. The Dark Knight spoke. At first he did not realize that it was him, because he was too weak, but now he is impressed. Apparently he really does have the coordinate of the Kronos court, and at the same time he is the one who will save them from this endless hellish war. They have waited so long that they have already lost track of time. If he can withstand it, he will acknowledge him. The Dark Knight created a huge stream called Pure Sea of Flame and sent it upward. Karen said it was incredible. MC narrowed his eyes and thought, the lunar eclipse will last for another 5 seconds, so he can only attack directly. The knight ordered to show them and Zion swung his sword. From now on until the end of days they will repeat the battle they loved so much, without a chance for life or death, until only one of them remains. he will stand on the battlefield and regret the past. In this endlessly repeating battle, the king of the god-forsaken army waited, for the one who will put an end to his cursed fate will finally appear. A bright flash appeared on the battlefield. The protagonist calmly picked up the weapon shrouded in dark mana. After a while, the king of the legion looked down and asked, "What was that?" The protagonist answered, "A bottomless abyss." The opponent noted that how accurately said. He thanked the judge and said that thanks to MC, he can finally rest. Zion remained silent, looking at the developing dark smoke. The protagonist thought that he had defeated the army, and it was time to move on to the next target. He calmly stuck his hand into the portal. After a while, the protagonist announced that he was there. The guard asked, "Did the cursed army plunge into eternal sleep?" MC isn't going to ask who he is. Zion thought it was a guard. Even the chronicles only know one thing about him. The protagonist asked, "Where are the 5 questions?" The guard asked, "Does MC already know what artifact he wants to get?" Nothing else was expected from the hero. The guard ominously pointed a finger in his direction and asked him to wait. He irritably noted that MC is not a hero. What does this mean? Fate is already predetermined. The hero will destroy the army and come here. Zion asked, "What does fate predetermined mean?" The guard clarified, "At what point did everything get mixed up? This is problematic." MC asked, "What is the guard talking about?" The guard smiled madly and raised his hand, clarifying that he is right. The protagonist is also a hero, which means he deserves to know. Does MC know what fate is? A record of their past, present, and future is luck. The time allotted to them in this world is fate, and altogether, destiny. It is predetermined from the very beginning. There is no escape from it. No change to it. Some say they are the creators of their own destiny. This is completely untrue. Destiny has decided that the hero who defeated the cursed army will stand here, but the protagonist came much earlier than expected. The guard thought that destiny cannot be changed. Zion wondered, does destiny mean chronicles? The guard calmly said, "What does it mean? A variable has appeared in destiny, caused by the intervention of a transcendental being." He approached the protagonist's face and added that he simply cannot understand what happened. The guard wondered why he cannot see MC's destiny, as if the protagonist is not of this world. Zion raised his hand and clarified, "Does this mean the guard does not give him anything?" The guard smiled and replied that it was not so. Since the protagonist was here, MC deserves to receive 5 questions. Zion noted that apparently this is also a kind of destiny. The guard handed the protagonist a gold bracelet, and MC thought that these were 5 questions of Chronos, a myth-grade artifact that contains the power of the 5 questions that the ancient god Chronome asked of the people. 5 multicolored stones inlaid into the bracelet. Each of them symbolizes a question, and each contains a power that surpasses natural disasters. Zion looked at the bracelet and thought that even though all the stones are disposable, the myth grade is the most suitable for this item. The guard pointed to the bracelet and said that one question was missing. It will appear when MC uses the coordinates it owns. The Ghost Legion was born from the power of this question. The guard with a crazy look asked to ask only one thing and wondered who the protagonist was. Zion lowered his head and replied that he was not sure. He disappeared after asking the question. After a while, Karen asked in amazement what was going on. He thought that the king of the Ghost Legion created the Sword of Disaster. Prince Zion destroyed this sword with one blow. How is this even possible? Where did the protagonist disappear to? Lucina asked, "Did they all come to kill the master too?" She asked with a crazy look, "Are they his enemies too?" Paulo disagreed and replied that they were warriors. They were sent here by Her Highness Princess Evelyn to protect Prince Zion. General Liam noted that this was probably true. At least the Karen he knew would not accept an assassination order. Karen looked away in surprise and asked what the general was doing here. "Just don't tell him that the general came here after retiring." Liam calmly replied that he was. Who would have thought that these two could deal with an entire army without help? Karen smiled and said that it was a relief that the general was okay. Does Liam know what happened here? Liam pointed at Lucina and replied that they could see everything for themselves. A ghost legion appeared, and Prince Zion and this girl defeated it. Karen asked in surprise, "What about those monsters that fought the Ghost Legion?" Lucina turned her head to the side and asked where the master went. A portal instantly appeared and the protagonist stepped out of it. Lucina happily clarified, "MC returned." The knights called out to his highness. Zion, tired, said he needed to rest. 5 days later, the protagonist said he was leaving. Liam lowered his head and replied that he would join them. MC clarified, "Will the general go with him?" Liam noted that a promise is a promise. He thought that of course he would like to linger in the village. The protagonist disagreed and asked him to stay here for now. MC thought that first, in order to leave the Imperial City, he had to manifest himself as the successor and receive the 5 questions. Liam was just an additional variable. For now, the general might be useful to him, but he was not necessary. Of course, it would be a different story when the full-scale war with the demons began. Zion clarified that he would contact the general when he needed Liam's help. The general noted that the protagonist had always exceeded his expectations. In that case, he did not mind. Liam and the villagers bowed goodbye and he asked to contact him when he needed the general. The protagonist replied as he left that he would definitely do so. He thought confidently that they had grown up. The people left behind before leaving the imperial family. It was time to take everything. After some time, Eileen asked, Had the Ghost Legion disappeared? The assistant confirmed this and handed her the report. He noted that this report was provided by their special intelligence agent Nari. He had been tracking Prince Zion, so there should be no mistakes. Aileen looked at the report and read that, according to the report, Prince Zion and his people had arrived in the village. He set up a barrier and called in an army. When the barrier fell, the Ghost Legion had already been destroyed. No one was left alive except the prince himself and his subordinate, a woman with red eyes, as well as Liam, the Ghost King. An Ash Lion unit also appeared there. Aileen asked, "No one else knows about this, right?" The assistant agreed and replied that he was absolutely right. She thought that if this information were to become known, it would cause chaos not only in the capital, but throughout the entire country. Aileen asked, "What about Prince Zion?" The assistant replied that he did not think the protagonist would stop there. Presumably, his path lay to the Imperial City. Aileen thoughtfully put her hand to her chin and looked at the report and wondered. MC wanted her to report to him right in the Imperial Palace and pass on the information to the assembly members. The assistant added that there was also a person who was considered a hero. Aileen asked to tell her more. At the same time, the protagonist was calmly sitting on the floor among the mannequins. A black star fell, and the ceiling was enveloped in a glow. Dark streams of mana from the stars went to MC's body. Zion sadly lowered his head down. He stood up and thought, "Is it really impossible to get through to the 3 stars now?" He thought that it would work this time. It's all about the body. Even though he placed the heart of a 1,000-year-old ogre in it, its basic capabilities are too low. It needs to be developed. The protagonist heard a knock on the door and asked to come in. Priscilla greeted the prince and clarified that she heard how the protagonist dealt with the Ghost Legion. So this is what the underground training ground looks like. The Imperial City only talks about it. MC asked what brought her here. Priscilla put her hand to her chest and replied that she would like to help him in his quest, or rather, she wanted to offer him her help. Zion clarified, how? How is she going to help him? Her magical abilities are not enough even to fight mercenaries. What demons are we talking about? Maybe she is better at gathering information, or has the authority to mobilize her family or the magic tower? Zion does not mind her walking near his palace, but if she wants more, she must prove herself worthy. Priscilla sadly lowered her head and replied that she understood everything. The protagonist looked at her and thought that this should be a trigger. If Priscilla didn't want to become the princess of misfortune like in the novel, she would have to try really hard. Priscilla walked towards the exit, irritated, past the protagonist's assistants. Thierry said that the cross-check that MC had asked for was complete. Besides, it looked like the coronation ceremony, where MC would be recognized as the official heir, would soon take place. But during the preparations for the ceremony, they noticed that the third Prince Enoch and Regan were plotting something. Zion asked, "Have they finally started to act?" He turned his head to the side and Thierry asked, "Can the Lord handle it alone?" Zion agreed and asked, "What about his other request?" Thierry replied that everything was ready. But will it really work out? Lushina happily exclaimed, "Of course, the Lord had worked out the plan." She quickly pointed at herself and asked if she could go with him. Zion disagreed and replied that what she wanted so much would definitely not work out this time. He patted her on the head and added that there was business for her here. The protagonist headed to the side and asked her to wait a bit. Sometime later in the castle, Regan smiles surrounded by his comrades. He turned his head to the side and noticed Enoch standing in the distance. Regan grinned and thought that everything was ready. He noticed that the protagonist of the coronation was a little late. The people clarified. By the protagonist, he meant His Highness the Prince. The man agreed and said that he heard that the protagonist subdued the Ghost Legion. Who would have thought that this Prince Zion would cope with the disaster? His Majesty probably knew that this would happen. That's why MC appointed His Highness the Prince as the heir. But did they know? They say that when the protagonist dealt with the Ghost Legion, they found the captain of the Demon Extermination Squad, Liam, who is now retired, and the Ash Lion unit. The man clarified, "Is this really true? Surely, Her Highness Princess Diana organized everything. Most likely, even the Ash Lion unit was involved. Under such circumstances, does the question of the legitimacy of the succession to the throne not arise?" The assistant grabbed the door handle and announced that His Highness, the Imperial Prince Zion, had arrived. The protagonist calmly entered the hall and headed towards the throne. Diana looked at him and noted that the last time they saw each other was when they were all gathered together in the throne room. She congratulated her brother on his victory over the Ghost Legion and added that, however, if he continued to emit such energy, no one would come near him. MC smiled and asked why he needed these people's attention. He didn't think they would be of any use. Diana clarified, "So he was only here for the ceremony?" Zion noted that it was arranged for him. "Isn't it obvious that he should attend?" Whatever it was. Diana was surprised and clarified, "Whatever it was?" The priest announced that they would now begin the coronation ceremony of His Highness Prince Zion. He asked His Highness to come up to the stage. The people looked at him in surprise. The priest looked at the scroll and said that the great empire of Agnes existed for 400 years, since the time of the first emperor, His Majesty Aurelian. Regan grinned sarcastically and asked them to wait and give him their attention. First, he would like to express his congratulations for all the achievements of the hero of the occasion, His Highness Prince Zion, who who defeated the Phantom. The priest turned to him and clarified that Regan could congratulate His Highness after the coronation. Regan said that until recently, no one would have thought that His Highness would cope with one of the disasters. He was called the captive prince. The protagonist was a common fool. Just a couple of months ago, His Highness the Prince was a completely different person. MC passed the succession ceremony without any difficulties and even coped with the disaster. But they must say, how did His Highness change so much in such a short period of time? Even if the blood of Agnes awakened in the protagonist, it is impossible to gain such a powerful force so quickly. It cannot be comprehended by ordinary means. Enoch looked at the assistant in amazement and asked, "Is Regan hinting at Zion having obtained forbidden power?" Regan replied that he did. Mr. Protagonist must have signed a contract with a demon to learn dark magic. The people looked at MC in amazement. The aristocrat yelled in surprise, "What are they talking about?" Mr. Zion made a deal with a demon. Regan madly noticed that a trail of demonic power was following the protagonist. It was found in the Guiding Star Palace where the protagonist lives, and in the Qualification Palace where the succession ceremony was held. A normal person would never make a contract with a demon in their entire life. And here this connection is traced twice. MC is already showing symptoms confirming the borrowing of demonic power. The people asked in fear, "Is this true? How is this possible?" Regan raised his hands and said that dark magic is forbidden in the Empire. If someone from the ruling family has such power, he tarnishes the reputation of the Empire. They can't be sure yet. And yet, can they continue the ceremony given the possibility of confirming his suspicions? The people in robes stood behind Regan, and the people asked who they were. Regan resolutely raised his hands and answered that these people serve the light. They are the high priests of the church. Let them check if the prince really owns dark magic, and the wizards are here only to ensure his safety with the people. Regan looked at the girls and thought that here is their proof. Everyone present is a witness. Regan asked the prince to forgive him. A magical seal instantly appeared under the protagonist's feet. Regan thought that detaining a member of the imperial family in public is a crime for which he can be executed, but it does not matter if it helps to prove that MC really mastered dark magic. After a while, the priests crossed their hands and turned to the light of the divine, who sees everything. A bright light surrounded the protagonist, and he calmly looked down. The priests standing around him were casting the Arbat Dior spell. MC tensely raised his hands. Regan, covering his face from the light with his hand, thought that the sacred spell Arbat Dior draws out the dark power. If it is directed at a person who has made a contract with a demon, he smirked and thought that it would happen now. The light would dissipate and the dark power would manifest around the prince. The priest asked in surprise, "How so? Is the prince really like that?" Enoch smiled madly and thought that MC was finished. Regan raised his hand and said that if Zion could not cope with the dark energy, his mind might go cloudy. He asked 1 to 4 to get ready. Regan smiled happily and mentally asked the shame of the family to show their true appearance. A bright light spread throughout the hall. The smoke cleared, and Regan asked them to hold back. He instantly fell silent and looked at the protagonist. MC calmly shook the smoke off his hand. Regan asked in amazement, "But where is the dark force?" The priests turned their heads to the side in fear and called out to Sir. Zion clarified, "Everything didn't go as planned, did it?" Regan noticed with great tension that the protagonist did it on purpose to set him up. MC smiled and ordered to take them. After a while, the knights put handcuffs on Regan. People looked at what was happening in amazement. Diana smiled and thought that MC lured them into a trap using their own plan. Zion deceived Regan. Enoch's brain. The current Zion is a completely different person. That's why Regan suspected him. It's quite obvious. The protagonist looked sternly at the priest and asked, "Are they continuing the ceremony?" The priest announced that as acting emperor, he appoints the protagonist as heir. Enoch gripped the handle of the throne with fury. Diana looked at him with a smile. The protagonist went down and instantly left the castle. Lucina quickly ran towards him and asked, "Has the master returned yet?" MC noted that he has something for her. Lucina approached him and asked what it was. MC handed her a sheet and replied that it was a map with a mark of the Bloody Tower. Zion thought that the location of the tower where the wizards gather was a closely guarded secret, but the Eternal Shadows managed to find it. The protagonist said that he wants her to go there. Lucina tilted her head to the side in surprise and asked why. The protagonist replied that she should capture it. After some time in the castle prison, Regan sadly looked down and said that he was deceived. How did the protagonist even hide this? After all, there were obvious hints about his connection with the demon. How so? Regan calmed down and noted that it was very stupid. An insult to the royal family, an assassination attempt on a member of the royal family, and possibly treason. He thought that if the third prince intervened, maybe he would manage to survive. Enoch said that it hurt to the depths of his soul. Regan quickly got to his feet and called out to the third prince. Enoch pointed his finger at him furiously and said that the assistant had tried to discredit the direct descendant of the emperor and take his life. If he had known, he would have killed him with his own hands. Regan must deal with everything that happened today on his own. It has nothing to do with him. Regan understood him, right? The assistant looked at the departing prince with great surprise. He sat down on the floor and noted that he had served Enoch for so long. Who would have thought that his path would end like this? Sometime later in the Red Star Palace in the secret basement, Enoch raised his sledgehammer with great rage and yelled, "How dare these damned freaks!" He struck the man and the enemy fell to the ground. Enoch noticed that they had crossed the line. He thought that he hadn't been able to pay him enough attention because he had a bunch of fools to keep an eye on. But from now on, Zion was the first one he needed to get rid of. Maybe he should go to him for advice? Enoch walked down the corridor from which screams asking for help were heard. After a while, the demoness asked, "Is he sure?" The demon agreed and said that Cainless had disappeared, as had the coordinates. The demoness clarified that she was 90% sure that that bastard, Zion, was behind this. How did the protagonist even find out? This information was a closely guarded secret even among them. The demon replied that he had no idea. He thought that neither the oldest information organization in the Empire, nor the people holding the highest positions could stop them, or even understand that they existed. And this child went further and started hunting them, as if the protagonist knows what he's going to do. The demoness asked not to say that this freak has something like their eyes of the future. The demon clarified, and if so, even they can't find out everything with their help. The demoness asked, so what's the matter? What if all their information about the prince is wrong? The demon replied that it was quite possible. You need to figure out how to get rid of MC. The demoness noted that it was very interesting, both this side and the hero's side. She remembered something and said that she heard that the prince was going to visit the University Magic Tower. The demon lowered his head and added that he had heard about it, but he doesn't understand why. The demoness clarified, is Heduk there? As long as he's there, they won't be caught, right? The demon agreed and clarified that they should still notify him. After a while, Claude Lindell raised his hand and greeted His Highness. He noted that it was a great honor for them to meet him here. Claude introduced himself with a smile and said that he was a teacher of frost magic. At the same time, Priscilla wondered what she should do to become stronger. The protagonist said that he did not need her usual abilities, and the only way to improve skills in such a short time. She sadly lowered her head and the guy asked who it was. Who was this person, since the professor personally came out to meet him? Could he really be from the palace? Priscilla approached the students and wondered what was going on there. She looked out the window and instantly fell into a stupor. On the street, Claude said that MC had come to meet the master of the magic tower. Unfortunately, the master was currently absent. The professor asked to be allowed to escort the prince to the guest room while he waited. Zion turned his head to the side and interrupted him, disagreeing. He headed for the gate and clarified that he would first look into the magic tower. Claude replied that he understood him, then he would escort the prince. The protagonist confidently clenched his fist and thought, is this supposed to happen today? According to the plot of the story, one of the key moments of the narrative should happen tonight in the University Magic Tower. It will not cause such a catastrophe as the rain in Draenir. An entire city disappeared then, and this is not a ghostly legion that destroyed the village. But the moment when the heroes group will achieve perfection depends on today's event. The professor, walking down the corridor, said that the classrooms on the 4th floor are equipped with the most modern engineering systems. At the same time, the protagonist, without listening to him, thought that it was here. He turned his head to the side and asked if he could attend the lecture. Claude was surprised and thought, Prince Zion at an advanced course lecture? The protagonist sternly clarified that he did not like to repeat himself. Claude bowed and agreed with him. MC entered the office and looked at the students sitting at the tables. He turned his head to the side and thought that he had found it. Zion set his sights on Tyron Vlihalden, or rather Heinrich the Whisperer, an archmage who has broken through the limitations of the existing 9-tier magic system, the first to reach the transitional 10th tier, a legendary figure, the one who is rumored to be closest to the truth. Closer than other mages, Tyron is said to have revealed all the secrets of the world, including the end of the abyss. Whenever the strongest mage is mentioned in the Empire, his name is uttered. This is Tyron's past life, and in the future, the Archmage will become one of the hero Frozamar's companions. Laziness is a trait that Tyron was born with this time. Although he retains memories from his past lives, his magical abilities are currently quite weak. Naturally, Tyron will improve them when he joins the character's party. But the problem is that due to the incident that will happen tonight, the meeting between Tyron and the character will be delayed for a long time, and Tyron will be the last to join the party, by which time the war with the demons will have already begun. They won't have a chance to work together and fully unleash their power, but Tyron will be sent to the battlefield. This will be one of the main reasons why the character's team will lose to the Demon King, and then the Empire will fall. There are two main strategies that can prevent the end of the Empire, and with it, the world. In the first, Zion will absorb the Empire, and in the second, it will change the history of the character and his comrades. The Frozamar Chronicles is a story that ends in failure, but the protagonist must rewrite it. After a while, the professor said that thus, the academic community has so far been unable to establish a clear connection between spatial distortion and time in gravity magic. Does anyone want to speak on this topic? If you don't have any thoughts, he will give an easier lecture next time. Essien raised his hand and addressed the professor. He clarified, only students can answer the professor's question. The teacher disagreed and asked, is there something Essien wants to say? Essien replied that if others were allowed to speak, he would like to listen to His Highness the Prince. The protagonist was attending the lecture. It was said that members of the imperial family were given a well-rounded education from an early age, and thanks to their innate powers they showed exceptional abilities in any field. which meant that the MC should have a basic knowledge of magic and understand the formula written on the board. Maybe the prince would even offer some fresh ideas regardless of his level of magic knowledge. After all, he was the prince of the great Agnes Empire. Even if the problem was unsolvable, it was useful to hear different points of view. Essien wondered how the MC dared to show himself after breaking off his engagement with Priscilla. Even if the protagonist accepted the challenge, he would have nothing interesting to say, and if he refused, he would become a fool. The professor said that the guests had not been asked questions directly related to the content of the lecture so far, so they could ask that question later. Zion disagreed and noted that Essien wanted to hear his thoughts, and he dare not refuse it. After a while, the protagonist waved his hand in front of the board. He raised the chalk up with magic. The students were very surprised, and Tyron raised his hand in admiration. MC thought that the connection between spatial distortion and time and gravity magic involves all three concepts of gravity, space, and time. This theory cannot be accurately determined with the current level of magic. According to Chronicles of the Hero of Frozimar, shortly before the start of the war with demons, a better solution to this problem was found. Even in Chronicles of the Hero of Frozimar, this formula was very rare. And yet Tyron should be interested in this. Well, of course, after all, it was the future Tyron who developed it. The Archmage devoted his entire past life to studying. The only attachment he has left, and which he has yet to get rid of, is the magic of space and time. After meeting the character, this formula will be the starting point for a satisfying ending. MC hopes that Tyron will be a little surprised when he sees it. The professor tensely turned his head to the side and thought that he had never seen such a formula before. He must write it down. The professor raised his hand in anger and ordered to bring a pen and paper. Priscilla thought that, as expected, Zion really was limitlessly talented, but that is why she felt that she had no right to stand next to him. MC calmly walked up the stairs near the tables. Essien looked at him in amazement and thought that he definitely heard that the protagonist had never studied magic. Zion sternly remarked that, does the student know that he hates being tested? Essien fell to the floor in great fear. The protagonist headed for the exit, and the professor asked him to wait for him. The door to the classroom closed, and Tyron looked at the notebook. After some time, MC looked into the cup and said that he did not like it. He thought that the second reason he came to the Magic Tower was to meet the Master, perhaps even more important than meeting Tyron. Master of the Magic Tower, Ahmad Oslima apologized for keeping His Highness waiting. Zion turned his head to the side and thought it was Ahmad, Archmage who looked behind the veil of the universe's secrets, Eternal Seeker of Truth, Emperor of the White Flame, and so on. Ahmad is the holder of many titles, one of the strongest people in Chronicles of the Hero of Frozimar. Ahmad clarified that on the way here, he read about the formula that the protagonist wrote, so he was a little late. He sat down on the sofa and said that there were answers in it that were useful even for him. MC wondered where the Magister was. Ahmad lowered his head and replied that he had to leave for a minor family matter. It doesn't mean anything, so the protagonist can rest easy. Zion thought that Oslima comes from a noble ancient family of magicians. His family can boast of power and strength among the 5 most noble families of the empire. Also noteworthy is the kinship of the Magister with the 3rd Prince Enoch on his mother's side. Ahmad will never use power for the sake of the family or Enoch. After all, the Magister is tired of the family's struggle for power. 20 years ago, Ahmad renounced the family and since then has not conducted any external affairs. The Magister became a professor of magic and dedicated his life to teaching. Perhaps this time, Ahmad decided to visit the family to stop their attempts to appease him. The protagonist asked, then they would get straight to the point. Ahmad asked him to wait and said that he would like to ask MC something. Does the protagonist believe that there is such a thing as human essence? Zion did not answer, and the master replied that he did. After he touched the secrets of the universe, he managed to look into human essence. Ahmad had already met the protagonist in the past. Unlike other princes and princesses, the essence of His Highness was pure, and he could not forget it. The essence is unchangeable, as is fate. If it does change, a person will not be the same. Who is Prince Zion? The protagonist replied that it did not matter. What is important is that the man standing in front of the master is called Zion, and until now he has survived in the imperial palace. Ahmad was surprised and wondered, was it really only MC's essence that changed to survive in the imperial palace? Has Agnes's blood appeared in him? If even the protagonist's essence changed for the sake of survival, what the hell is going on in the palace? The Magister bowed and said that it was wrong of him to ask the MC a question. He apologized and asked why His Highness came here. Zion raised his fingers and replied that he needed 3 things. First, he needed information about the strange doctor's whereabouts and a way to contact him. Second, he wanted to improve the magic circle. And finally, he needed the Magister's help. Zion thought that the magic doctor was considered one of the 3 doctors in Chronicles of the Hero of Frozimar. He was extremely eccentric and freedom-loving, which is why he was nicknamed Strange. His location was constantly changing, and it was impossible to find him without special connections. It so happened that Ahmad was one of the doctor's 2 close friends. The Magister replied that perhaps he could help the MC. His protagonist would tell him the reason why he wanted to meet the strange doctor, and why he was going to improve the magic circle. However, Ahmad would not be able to help directly. He has completely dedicated himself to the magic tower. If he, a man who ignores his family and palace, helps MC, he will break his own vow. Zion clarified, and what if the master's help is not related to the imperial palace, but to the magic tower? Ahmad was surprised and asked what the prince meant. Zion added that it was also about magic, which the master needs to improve. After a while, Tyron asked if he should just go back. He thought that the professor was proud. He did not understand why the professor called him, but since it was related to his studies, Tyron should go. Tyron remembered the protagonist and said that they needed to study the prince's formula again, but he does not fully understand it yet. Tyron opened the door slightly and thought that MC did not seem to be smart in magic. Although thanks to Zion, he finally advanced. Tyron instantly stood in a stupor, seeing something in the room. He asked with great fear, "What is it?" The room is filled with dark streams of energy. Tyron squatted down and took the energy in his hand and thought, "Is this demonic energy or black magic?" The one who called him, definitely. Plod called out to Tyron and asked what the student was doing here. Plod and his assistants looked at Tyron, sitting with dark magic in his hands. They asked in amazement what was going on. The professor yelled that this was dark energy. Tyron looked at his hands and thought, this is good. They set a trap. This complicates everything. If he gets caught here, they will definitely brand him a criminal. Tyron looked at the dark energy emanating from Plod and thought, he is sure that Professor Lindell is behind this, but now he can't prove it. Now he needs to get out of here. The professors asked Tyron to just follow them voluntarily, and they will not use force. They enveloped their bodies in mana and headed towards the magician. Plod grinned maliciously and thought, this is good. A while ago, the professor asked, is everyone here? Essien asked to get straight to the point. What was so important that the professor had gathered them all? Plod replied that it was not about their grades. There was something much more important. Essien clarified, something more important? The professor approached him and whispered in his ear that today they would finally play their roles. Essien asked what the professor was talking about. Plod instantly pierced his chest with a blade. Essien coughed up blood and the students looked at him in fear. Plod quickly killed all the students. A cry of pleading was heard from the room. The professor smiled terrifyingly and thought that a trap had been set for Tyron. Plod now thought that, of course, he could just call the student and kill him. But that was not what his superiors needed. The protagonist noticed that something interesting had happened, and the professors turned their heads to the side. MC confidently entered the room. Plod thought that it was Zion. He had been told not to leave him alone. They want Plod to be careful with the protagonist, because the MC seems to be hunting them. No, that's even better. If the Imperial family is really hunting demons, blaming Tyron for everything is a very good option. If everything goes according to plan, he won't even have to kill anyone. Plod quickly raised his hand in front of the MC and yelled that this is dangerous. He asked the prince to stay back and exclaimed that they will deal with the culprit. Zion agreed and said that the culprits must be dealt with. Plod grinned maliciously and thought that this is good. Everything is going according to plan. Before he could finish his thought, the protagonist struck him in the neck. The professors looked at the fallen body in fear. The professor turned to his highness in fear. Zion stabbed the sword covered in dark magic into Plod's body. The professors yelled with great fear, "What is his highness doing?" The protagonist calmly replied that he was looking for the criminal. Dark magic spread out from Plod's body. MC thought it was working well. No matter how strong a demon was, he would never be able to resist a magic circle drawn directly on his body, along with a black star. Plod transformed into a demon and rose up. The protagonist angrily called him a damned half-breed. The professors asked in fear, "What is this?" Plod angrily exclaimed that since it came to this, he would have to kill all the fools here. Zion smiled and thought that he could not let the enemy do this. Powerful streams of wind threw Plod aside. MC raised his sword and used lunar eclipse. Plod gritted his teeth and called him a freak. He enveloped his fist in magic and quickly headed towards the protagonist with the intent to attack. Zion instantly slapped his hand on the opponent's face. He raised his sword enveloped in magic and used black flash. Plod quickly jumped to the side with his leg raised. He tried to attack, but the protagonist blocked it. MC pointed the sword towards Plod's fist and used black flash. The professor standing behind the shield watched what is happening. The professor noted that it was amazing. The opponents calmly prepared for the attack. They instantly struck each other. Tyron wondered, who would have thought that the protagonist was so good? He can't help it. This sinister creature of darkness is insidious, and the gap between their forces is large. Plod thought that he won. The protagonist calmly asked, did the opponent know? Plod's opponent is not him. Plod asked in bewilderment, what does this mean? Streams of magic quickly threw Plod aside. Ahmad sternly asked, what kind of horror is this? The protagonist turned his head to the side and paid attention to him. He thought it was the Magister. The strongest in the world, except for demons of course, are called the Seven Heavens. Among them is a magician who has the power to single-handedly wipe an entire city off the earth. They call him the Mage of Destruction. The master asked terrifyingly, the demon is ready to pay for the sins, right? Zion thought that Ahmad, or the white flame of the emperor, is the fifth heaven. After a while, Plod, engulfed in flames, screamed with rage. He gritted his teeth in pain. The protagonist thought that the demon was still holding back the fire. An ordinary person, having barely touched him, would immediately burn. The master looked at the demon and asked, How dare Plod commit such terrible deeds within the walls of his magic tower? The professors looked at what was happening in amazement. Plod quickly raised his hand with rage. Ahmad calmly asked, did the demon really think that he could get him? He instantly waved his finger, and the demon was incinerated by flames. The protagonist used dark eyes and looked up and wondered, is this an enemy? He quickly jumped up. MC kicked the flying stream of dark magic and asked where the enemy was going. Plod furiously called him a freak from Agnes. Zion pierced him with his sword, and the demons screamed in pain. Plod disappeared, and the protagonist landed on the floor. He looked at Tyron and thought that now he would not have to postpone the meeting with the character. Zion does not know how much this will affect the upcoming events, but at least they will not blame the crime on Tyron and leave. Tyron probably realized that the demons are hunting him and will not be so lazy anymore. The master asked, is no one injured? The professor raised his hand and answered that everyone is safe. But what was that? Ahmad said that for now, they must keep what they witnessed a secret. He will take on all questions related to this case. The professors exclaimed that they understood everything. The master turned to Tyron and swept away that the student seemed tired. Tyron can go rest. Tomorrow he will take the student and they will discuss everything. Tyron calmly agreed with him. Ahmad turned to his highness and clarified that it seemed to be time for them to return to that conversation. The protagonist replied that he would be happy to. After some time, the master clarified, so the demons are hiding among them? What should he do? MC replied that what he asked for earlier. The master remembered the past. Zion said that since Ahmad had taken a vow not to interfere in affairs outside the magic tower, the master has no right to enter into conflicts of the palace. But improving the color identification system is of paramount importance. After all, in the future, it will play a key role in hunting monsters. Ahmad came out of his memories. After some time, Tyron quickly ran after MC asked him to wait. He stopped and clarified that he wanted to ask the prince something. Zion put his finger to his mouth and replied that he should not. Only the worthy can ask. In his eyes, Tyron has not yet deserved this. MC thought that not only is there no point in this now, Tyron will also be able to develop, but only on the side of the character. He is not going to raise Tyron. You can return to this thought when all the members of the character's team finally awaken. Well, having even one of them is not so bad, right? After a while, Tyron, sadly standing by the door, noted that only the worthy meant. He thought that he could not stop thinking about the strength of the master. But there is something amazing about Prince Zion too. The protagonist knew the exact answer in a theory that even he could not fully understand. And MC knew from the very beginning that Professor Plod was a criminal. Zion would not have done this if he was not 100% sure that the man was a demon. Next time Tyron will not be so lucky. Only the worthy can ask. Tyron noted that the protagonist was probably right and thought that he should become stronger to fight back if something like this suddenly happens again. And then next time he will come to Prince Zion and deservedly demand answers. After some time the car stopped on the road. The protagonist looked at his hand and thought, were the events of the previous night the consequences of using the lunar eclipse? Probably. For the next 4 or 5 days, he will remain in this state, before the symptoms were not so strong. But it is a pity that Zion is so weak. If he had not absorbed the heart of the 1,000-year-old ogre, he would not have been able to use the lunar eclipse at all. You need to get to that strange doctor quickly. This is the most effective way to improve your physical condition so far. MC also benefited from this battle, the Black Star of the 3rd stage. Did it awaken after he killed the king of the Ghost Legion and used the lunar eclipse again? And as soon as the body is restored, MC will be able to move on to the 3rd stage. Zion clenched his hand into a fist and Thierry greeted his highness. She asked how the train went. The protagonist asked to tell first and asked if everything was ready. Thierry smiled and confirmed it. At the same time, Diana put her hand on the table. She threw her head back and thought that this black sword is definitely it, the sword that extinguishes the light. It is known that it was owned by the first emperor or the eternal emperor. In the underground treasury, she only saw a part of it. Who would have thought that the sword that extinguishes the light would end up in Zion's hands? What really happened? This sword was the only unchanging weapon of the eternal emperor. And this is an amazing symbolism. The fact that the sword ended up in the protagonist's hands cannot be ignored. No one talks about it only because only a few people know about the existence of such a sword and what it looks like. If the truth were to be found out, there would be an uproar, which is hard to imagine. Diana thoughtfully looked down and turned to Lloyd. He lowered his head, and Diana asked to assign as many spies to Zion as to the other members of the ruling family. Lloyd agreed with her, and she clarified, "Will the meeting on national issues be held soon?" Lloyd confirmed it. Diana thought that the Agnes Empire National Affairs meeting, the second largest meeting of the empire. It is an important event where the direct descendants of the imperial family and important figures gather. They decide the future of the empire. It is a very significant meeting. Just being there speaks of a person's influence. The National Affairs meeting is run by members of the imperial family, and their right to speak is determined by the number of council members who support them. In order for a descendant of the imperial family to participate in the meeting, the support of at least 10 members of this meeting is required. Zion has not yet secured the support of a single one, Diana raised her hand and said that he does not need to worry about it. She is sure that the protagonist will not be able to join the meeting. After a while, a red car stopped on the road. Cleon Havas, a local aristocrat, scratched his mustache and asked, "Is the National Affairs meeting going to be held soon? I wonder who will come up with what proposals this time." Cleon thought that he would support them at the meeting, and then return to neutrality. It seems that the 4th prince and the 5th princess have something to offer him. And Prince Zion will not get to the meeting anyway. What can you do? This is the limit of the power of a weak monarch. Cleon noticed that even at night the lights sparkled so brightly, just like the future of this immortal empire, and like his best future. Cleon yelled in great surprise. Where are they going? He furiously ordered to stop right now. The car stopped instantly and the driver jumped out into the street. Cleon asked in fear, "What is this?" Dark magical energy went to the side, and Cleon quickly jumped out of the car. He yelled in fear. A stream of magic hit the car. Cleon asked in great fear, "What is going on here?" He looked at MC walking in the dark. Cleon resolutely put his hand to his chest and yelled that he did not know who sent the enemy, but he would not give up without a fight. Cleon sent a stream of mana from his hand, and assistants appeared around him. He pointed at the protagonist and ordered to stop him. Cleon fell into a stupor, and the assistants looked at their fallen comrades. Cleon ordered the assistants to fight. Zion sent streams of dark energy to the sides. The assistants screamed in fear, and Cleon, falling to the ground, asked, "Who is this? Why is the enemy doing this?" The protagonist clarified, "And what do you think the aristocrat does?" Cleon asked in surprise, "Is this Prince Zion?" The protagonist answered that endless cases of bribery and illegal accumulation of wealth, owning dozens of slaves to satisfy bad fantasies, although slavery has been abolished, killing political opponents. Cleon interrupted him tensely and asked how the prince knew. Zion asked him not to worry and clarified that he would give the aristocrat a chance to improve. At the same time, Burkle Izert, with a bag over his head, is sitting on a chair. Thierry sat calmly across from him, with her arms crossed. Burkle asked, "Thierry knew who he was and was still doing this?" Thierry laughed and asked, "He was great, wasn't he?" Burkle pointed out that his family's knights were probably already looking for him everywhere. It wouldn't take them an hour to find this place. He wondered if Thierry would smile like that then. Thierry replied that she didn't think Burkle's knights would find him, and even if they did, Burkle would send them back himself. Burkle looked at her with confusion and asked, "What did that mean?" Thierry said that first of all, maybe he should read it first. She quickly tore the bag off Burkle's head. After a while, Enoch and his assistant came down the stairs amidst screams. Enoch's assistant turned to His Highness and said that Prince Zion might be attending the meeting. Enoch clarified, but he wouldn't have much support, would he? The assistant replied that it looked like the protagonist would be getting the support of the neutral council members. Enoch asked irritably, how dare MC show up at the national meeting? He thought that it was impossible to win over 10 of the 11 neutral council members in such a short time. Although it was Zion, Enoch turned his head to the side and said that they should intervene. While he was in the basement, she should find out everything about these council members. The assistant bowed, and Enoch created a portal with magic. After a while, under the moon, the protagonist thought that the best view was from here. If not today, then he would have to postpone it until after the National Assembly. If everything went according to plan, then something would happen soon that would change the course of history. If by then, he had not reached the 3 stars, it would greatly affect his plan. Dark streams of magic were directed away from MC's body. Black stars appeared, and Zion opened his eyes and thought that it was now. Dark streams were directed inside him, and the protagonist thought that if he could not stand it, everything would be for nothing. 3 stars appeared in the dark streams of magic, and MC thought that finally, he had his last chance. At the same time, Thierry looked up in amazement. A dark cloud with many stars appeared above the castle. After a while, the master of the Blood Tower, Kerma Dickholes, was sitting at the table. He noted that at this rate, the very existence of the Blood Tower would be in danger. He did not know what to do. In times like these, fellow blood mages need to unite, but there are too few of them. They could use at least one person who looked like the Witch of Heavenly Slaughter. No, they needed the Witch of Heavenly Slaughter. Kerma turned his head to the side and asked, "What's the matter?" The assistant exclaimed that there was an intruder. Kerma ran out onto the balcony and looked at the assistants flying in the sky. He was stunned, and Liushina exclaimed smilingly that there he was. After a while, Kerma asked, "Is Liushina really a bloodwalker?" She irritably confirmed this and clarified that she had already said so. The assistants happily praised her. Liushina thought that taking control of the Blood Tower was easy, but what use are these guys? Who would have thought that people who inherited blood magic could be so weak? She doesn't like them. How annoying, but she has no choice. Liushina grinned ominously and thought that she needed to make them stronger. After some time, Louise said that Hiduk was killed. Edgar walked next to her and asked, "Is this Zion Agnes again?" She said that it was possible. To be more precise, they lost contact with Hiduk. Around the same time he arrived at the magic tower, he said with a serious expression that he warned him to be careful. "By the way, what happened to the magician?" She said that of course he failed. Maybe he planned this and that's why Hiduk was killed? He said that it hasn't been proven yet. They also managed to find out something about the hero with the help of the Eyes of the Future. She said that Zion might also have the Eyes of the Future. Still, who Who would have thought that he would be so strong? He said that it was a revelation for him too. Of course he assumed that he might have help from the outside. She looked at him and asked, does he think that that monster from the magic tower could interfere? He agreed and said that this matter was related to the tower, so it couldn't have passed him by. Especially considering that there was no information leak, it was very likely that he interfered. She asked, so there was also a high chance that Akhmat was somehow related to him? He said with a calm expression that it was not so at all. After all, he had sworn not to interfere in matters outside the walls of the magic tower. He must have interfered because it directly concerned the tower. However, still, the reason why this matter was not made public was because the prince was involved. It seemed that he was in no hurry to reveal their existence to the world. She said that they were similar in that. She didn't know exactly why, but they needed to get rid of him, didn't they? Edgar said that there was only one way to get him out of the way without personally interfering. He had heard that Prince Enoch intended to kill Zion. It seemed that he almost hated him. Louise said that meant that they could only give him a little push. That guy is in charge of Prince Enoch, right? He agreed and said that he didn't like him because he was a bit weird. She asked if he wanted to talk to him. He agreed, and she said that a hero would show up soon. However, before that, he needed to eliminate as many irritants as possible. After a while, the first heir of the Ozlima family, Grodd from the magical powerhouse, laughed and said that they hadn't seen each other for a long time. Count Alstein, whom he addressed with a calm expression, looked at him silently. He sat down next to him and said that it seemed like the imperial family was not there yet. Apparently the same people would be participating this time too. He thought that the seats were for Emperor Erdios and First Prince Rubrio. The emperor might not be attending the meeting due to illness, but who would have thought that the first prince would be absent? There were rumors that he had become obsessed with the Order of Light and had dedicated himself entirely to it. Could that be true? He asked with a small smile. Sure. Had he heard the news? Prince Zion personally dealt with Regan Ursula and the entire Icarus magic unit. Isn't that impressive? Until recently, he was called the disgrace of the imperial family. However, in just a couple of months, he went through the succession ceremony and even defeated the Phantom Legion, one of the 7 calamities. He also dealt with the magicians. Is he happy with that? He was about to say something else, but Alstein asked him to stop and said that it had nothing to do with them, so he would prefer that he stop talking about it. Someone said loudly that Her Highness the 5th Princess Diana Agnes had arrived. She entered the hall and thought, so no one has come? They have been fighting over egos for a long time, with no advantage in finding out who will speak last. Should he prepare a rule to this effect at the meeting? Someone said loudly that Her Highness the 2nd Princess Evelyn Agnes had arrived. She entered and sat down in her seat. The 4th Prince, Utakun, walked in with a smile and asked if he was late. The 3rd Prince, Enoch, walked in and said that he apologized for being late. He sat down in his seat and thought, as expected, he couldn't come. How dare he even try to participate in the National Assembly? He should know his place. He only won over 2 neutral council members to his side, which means he has 9 supporting him and won't be able to participate in the assembly. It's a simple but effective method. He also brought back the council members he had won over to his side, so everything should go smoothly. He would like to see his face. Evelyn, with a calm expression, said that they should now begin the National Assembly. She didn't have time to finish her sentence because a servant loudly said that His Majesty the 6th Prince Zion has arrived. Everyone was surprised by what they heard and looked towards the entrance. He, with a calm expression, walked into the hall and sat down in his seat. The family members looked at him with a surprised expression and wondered how he was able to enter the assembly hall at all. Enoch stood up from his seat and said loudly that they should wait. Where did this freak come from? How did he manage to enter the hall? The guy said that His Highness the 6th Prince had received the support of more than 10 council members. Therefore, he had fulfilled the requirements to participate in the National Assembly. He said with a dissatisfied look that this was impossible. They should check it again. He looked at the document and said that everything was correct. 11 people were listed here. He thought with a shocked expression that this could not be. He looked at the rest of the people and wondered, are there more neutral councilors that he does not know about? Besides, he was supported by 11 people instead of 10. The protagonist said that he wanted to ask something. Why did he think that he only received the support of the neutral council members? He should think about his own people first. The people in the hall started looking at each other, and Enoch was very angry because of what he said. He sat in his seat with a smile and said that now they could begin the meeting. Evelyn said that among the items presented at the last national meeting, Grodd looked at MC and thought that his appearance had not changed at all. Otherwise, one could say that he was a completely different person. That is why Icarus lost. Now it makes sense why Regan claimed that he practices dark magic. He can cause trouble. He looked at the people in the hall with a calm expression and thought that there were so many familiar faces. He had to kill half of them and save the rest. Some of them were useful to him and some were useless. Some were connected to demons, and some were demons themselves. The first thing they needed to do was get rid of the easiest target. She said that they needed to summarize the results of the last meeting and get down to the urgent agenda. First, they needed to consider Utikan's proposals regarding increasing the military budget. They started discussing it, and Diana thought that it was too quiet. The meeting was coming to an end. He must have decided to participate because he needed something. Evelyn said that now that they had discussed all the proposals put forward, they would move on to the conclusion. She didn't have time to finish because Zion said that he also had a proposal. She looked at him and asked, did he want to talk about it now? He agreed and said that his proposal was a parade. He suggested having a parade a little earlier. She asked, was he talking about the Imperial Parade? She thought that it was a regular parade held by the Imperial family of Agnes. The Imperial family marches accompanied by their troops and knights in front of the citizens outside the Imperial city. This parade shows the citizens the splendor of the imperial family and informs them of its well-being. Also, this parade marks the accession of the heir to the throne. In other words, it is a way to convey news to the citizens. The event is significant, but it is not perceived as something exceptionally important. Besides, in order to hold the parade, the heir must have complete control over his troops, but he doesn't have that. Even postponing the parade won't help him much. Why did he suddenly want to hold the parade earlier? Was he serious? He said that it seemed like a week from now would be enough to organize it. Utikan raised his hand with a smile, agreed to it, and said that it was very good. Diana raised her hand, refused, and said that if they suddenly moved the parade like that, the entire schedule would collapse. She thought with a serious expression that he couldn't suggest something without a plan. Until she knew what he was planning, she had to be careful. Evelyn turned around, called Enoch, and asked what he thought. He raised his hand and agreed to it. He thought that he was trying to create an opportunity for himself. He was going to suggest it anyway. He was probably planning something again, but it didn't matter. This time, he would destroy him at any cost. After a while, Evelyn walked down the street and said that she didn't think he would go through with the succession ceremony, but it seemed she was wrong about him. She looked at the protagonist and thought that now she understood what Kieran's interest was. He said that it didn't seem like she called him for that. What does she really want to tell him? She asked why he suggested it at the meeting. He asked, is she talking about the parade? She said that as far as she knew, he didn't have anyone else except a couple of knights from the palace of the Lodestar. Why did he insist on holding the parade early? He said that this way he would be able to attract their attention. She was a little surprised by this and asked what he was talking about. He spoke in riddles and she didn't understand him at all. If he needed knights for the parade. She didn't have time to finish her sentence because he refused and said that it was not necessary, although he had something to tell her. Sometime later, Diana was standing in the library and asked what he was planning this time. She didn't understand why he suggested it at the national meeting. She thought that he hadn't done anything until now. Is he really going to participate in the parade alone? A servant told Her Majesty the Princess that she had a guest. She was very surprised when she was told that it was His Highness the 6th Prince. She sat down on a chair in the office and told him to come in. When he came in, she told her younger brother that it had been a long time since they had met like this. They were not close enough to have idle talk, so he should get straight to the point. What brought him here? MC said that he wanted to fight the third prince. She was surprised by this and asked what he just said. He seriously wanted to fight the third prince? He does realize how ridiculous that sounds, right? He said that was why he was going to make sense of it. He was asking to let him borrow her power for a while until he could defeat Enoch. She started laughing out loud at this and said that it was a very funny joke. If he was serious, then he should tell her why she would risk starting a war with one of the members of the ruling family to help him, her younger brother, who didn't have enough power. If she helps, what will she get for it? And why did he even think she would agree? She started emitting an aura and said with a serious expression that in order to agree on something like this, they need to be on par with each other. He doesn't think they are on the same level, does he? He said with a small smirk that he wanted to ask something. Who determines this level? He released his energy, which surprised Diana a lot. She looked at it and thought that this was neither magic, nor a combat technique, nor a star sea. It was similar to a star sea, only darker. Did she really get scared? He stopped using energy and said that she didn't need to interfere personally. All she had to do was hand over the elemental army to him. She said with a serious expression that he should let her ask one more thing. Why did he come to her? Zion said that it was because she hated Enoch the most. She asked if that was his whole reason. He said that it was also because he was under the Red Star Palace. Is that enough? He thought that in the Chronicles, she attacked the third prince, who left the Imperial Palace during the parade. However, she herself did not interfere, so there was no full-scale battle. In the end, she lost. The reason why she decided to attack Enoch was not in the Chronicles, but it is definitely related to what is under the Red Star Palace. Diana thought with a thoughtful expression that the third prince was definitely much more annoying. He was more cruel in his daring actions. She was going to make him pay anyway. Besides, considering that one unit of Agrasia had already been destroyed, and regarding what was under the Red Star Palace, she only had vague information. She asked, he must have devised a plan, right? After a while, Diana was putting books on the shelves, and said that she did not expect his plan to be such a large-scale one. She thought he was preparing a small ambush attack. She thought that he was not planning to participate in the parade yet. It's extremely dangerous, but if it works, they'll be rid of Enoch once and for all. Come to think of it, it's not that impossible, or rather, a better opportunity might never come along again. In any case, she'd already agreed, and there was no turning back. She asked how much military force they had at their disposal. The servant said that all of the elemental army units except the 7th and 8th were on missions outside the capital. She said that they needed to gather them at the Blue Star Palace immediately. Let it look like they were preparing for a parade. Since she was going to do this, she needed to give it her all. After a while, Enoch entered the dark room and asked Dural, "Is he here, right?" He went to him, agreed, and asked where else would he be if not at the Imperial Palace. He tried to communicate with him, and it seemed like their thoughts coincided. He said with a serious expression that he should stop talking such nonsense. How is the experiment going? He said that thanks to his materials, they had managed to achieve significant success, but more time was needed to bring everything to perfection. He thought it was at least another 2 weeks. He thought about it. Is that how it is? It would be ideal if everything was ready for the parade, but everything is fine. It is not that important. He does not know why he suddenly needed to postpone the royal parade, but he will turn this idea against him. Dural remembered something and asked how the preparations for the parade were going. Enoch said that everything was great. As he said, Zion decided to hold the parade early to drive him out of the Imperial Palace. At night, he plans to secretly withdraw his troops from the Red Star Palace. He thought that if he only used the forces that would be at the parade, he could easily bypass his traps. However, this freak has already exceeded his expectations several times. He will destroy him with the superiority of his forces. Even if he does not attack, he will do it first. Dural approached him and said that it means that if something happens, they will definitely kill the 6th prince. However, His Highness must still be careful. The rumors about the 6th prince have been extremely unusual lately. He said with a calm expression that it doesn't matter. Even if he is 10 times stronger than they say, he is confident that he will destroy him this time. He thought that it will not be an easy death. As soon as he is overcome by despair, he will drive him into a corner from which he will never escape and will kill him in the most terrible and painful way. After some time, Thierry called His Highness the Prince and said that the 3rd prince has begun to act. The protagonist asked, "What about Lucina?" She said that she has just arrived in Hybris. He looked away and said that means she will be on time. She stood by and asked, "Is he leaving now? Perhaps it would be wiser to wait for the Witch of the Bloodbath to go to the Imperial City." He refused and said that it was necessary to do it now. He thought that the agreement with Diana, the proposal to hold the parade earlier, everything was done for this day. Enoch, this is his first target. Because he is the easiest target in the Imperial family, then he will become a difficult opponent. Under the Red Star Palace, the 3rd prince conducted experiments on people together with the demons. Soon he will receive the results of the experiments and quickly gain strength. In the original, the peak of his strength came during the parade, which was supposed to be held in a month. Then Enoch will be as difficult to defeat as Evelyn, one of the strongest. Also because of his increased strength, Diana's attack mentioned in the Chronicles failed. The week he won by postponing the parade. This is the time he must kill the 3rd prince. It was time to start the first hunt. After a while, 2 guards stood at the entrance and said that Icarus was doing badly. Shouldn't the junior knights from the Imperial City be on guard duty? He should stop grumbling. Honestly, he's just grateful that they are still alive. He's right, but still, this is too much. It's not their fault, then why were they punished at all for the commander's bad decisions? He should keep a low profile for now. It's worth staying in the shadows. Once everything calms down, they will move to another magic unit. However, when will that be? They noticed MC walking towards them in the crowd of people. One of the guards was about to loudly warn about the attack, but at that moment, a guy named Albert was killed. He was about to tell them something, but at that moment he walked up to him and killed him with one blow and said that he was going in. He went inside, and the guards who learned about the attack ran towards him. An adult knight asked loudly, "How dare they storm the Red Star Palace belonging to Prince Enoch?" Lagut with a calm expression said that they should take out those freaks first. They used magic, created ice stakes, and killed several warriors in one attack. They were surprised because of this, and loudly said that the strongest elemental army of the Agnes Empire. Why is Agracia here? Someone looked at the scene with a calm expression and thought that the strongest elemental army of Agracia, just a few hundred soldiers, were as strong as an entire squadron. Lagut stood nearby and said that the 3rd prince's office and bedroom were on the top floor. They would immediately clear the way there. He refused and said that they should go down to the basement because Diana wanted to make sure of something. After that, they all ran to the basement together and killed the guards who stood in their way. They stopped in front of the door, and he said that they should deal with them and go inside. They went inside, and he, with a shocked expression on his face, loudly called them damned freaks. They saw the mutilated bodies, and he loudly asked how they could treat human lives like this. They decided to stop them, and many monsters ran towards them. Lagut, with a very displeased expression on his face, said that Agracia would demolish everything here. They would not leave even a stone unturned. At the same time, The protagonist was climbing the stairs and killing the guards who tried to stop him. He thought that he needed to get to Enoch as soon as possible. Most of the Red Star Palace forces were probably in the underground lab. The guards tried to stop him and were discussing it loudly. He ran between them very quickly and attacked with his energy. One of them ran towards him to attack and asked loudly, how dare he arrogantly challenge them. Many other people also jumped towards him, and one of them said loudly that he would destroy him with one blow. He looked at him with a smirk and said that it seemed like he was the one who desperately wanted death. He used the dark flash skill and threw everyone around him in different directions. He thought that at the third level of the Black Star, the formation of a dark circle is the most important change. Dark energy passes through the body and is converted into star energy. When all circles are activated, the energy exchange occurs much faster than just through the vessels, as it was originally. He killed everyone who stood in his way and said that this should be enough. After that, he ran further up the stairs to the door. At the same time, the radio operator of the first unit of Ergazia, Lagut, used magic against the monsters and said that it seemed like the end was near. Who would have thought that the third prince would get involved with black magicians? He thought that the mere existence of a laboratory for experimenting on humans was shocking. But this disgusting energy filling the basement. He did not finish his thought because he noticed a door and asked what kind of place this was. He opened that door and said loudly that he could sense dark energy. Dural saw him and said that this was a problem. Immediately after that, he used magic and killed him. He watched the scene through a crack in the door and thought that he assumed that he needed an advantage for the parade. However, who was planning a full-scale battle anyway? What should he do? The elemental army would not cause any problems, but when his presence here was revealed, they would also find out that the palace was full of demons. If something went wrong, the grand plan would fail. He said that unfortunately, he had no choice. He used magic and escaped from the dungeon very quickly. He ran away from that place very quickly and thought that he would join the third prince later if they survived. First, they needed to get out of the imperial palace. His attention was drawn to the fact that someone launched magic projectiles at him and asked who he was. He waved his hand and reflected those projectiles with his magic. Lushina looked at him and said that he looked delicious. Diana looked at the scene from the window and asked if she should personally go there. She thought that the outcome of the battle would change dramatically if he joined. Frankly speaking, when she sent Agracia, she had already announced her intervention. However, how is he even going to fight Enoch? He can't handle it alone. He's very strong and reckless, and he has also mastered both the Star of the Heavenly Sea and magic. If Zion dies, that would be fine too, but she is still very interested in what is under the Red Star Palace. The third prince simply has to die. At the same time, Evelyn stood near the palace and asked, the army of elements in the Red Star Palace? Does that mean he wanted it? She remembered that earlier MC said that no matter what happens in the Imperial Palace before the parade, she should not interfere under any circumstances. She thought that, judging by the numerous emissions of elemental energy, Diana was also involved in this. Who would have thought that it would come to this? At the same time, Zion ran along the corridor and thought, were those magicians the last? This can't be. Immediately after that, he felt an attack from the side and blocked it with his energy. The demon girl was a little surprised that he was able to block her attack and asked, his reaction is pretty good, right? He swung his hand and threw it against the wall of this hall. Unexpectedly for him, another demon ran out, who hit him very hard. Because of this attack, he was thrown to the side and he hit the wall hard. They are mid-level demons from the independent squadron Adum and Kizana. He asked if they were really needed here. She asked what the topic was. He said that Dural was doing too much. He only sent them to stop this guy. She said that it seemed like he didn't know that he was coming here alone. Everything seemed to be going just fine. There were some annoying rumors going around about him. Killing him, since they had their reasons, wouldn't be the worst option. He slammed his fists together and said that they should finish him off and leave already. It seemed like there was quite a commotion in the basement. She said that he could deal with him himself. The protagonist, with a calm expression, said that he wanted to ask something. He stood up, started dusting himself off, and asked how they felt about the bugs crawling on the floor. They should assume that these bugs were in their way and were talking nonsense about him not knowing his place and killing him and stuff. She looked at him and asked what he was even trying to say. He started using his magic and asked how they would feel at that moment. Wouldn't it irritate them? He, for example, is extremely irritated right now. She looked at him with a displeased look and asked how dare he. He ran towards her very quickly, grabbed her head and slammed it against the wall. Adum became very angry about what happened and loudly insulted him. He began to emit strong energy and loudly said that he wouldn't leave even a wet spot of him. He ran towards him very quickly to attack. He looked at him, used the skill Corpse Armor, and thought that if the light-absorbing sword, Eclaxia, is his weapon, and his armor is corpse armor. In addition to enhancing his physical abilities, his body is completely protected from any external influence. He punched the demon who was running towards him and used the skill Impenetrable Thunder. With this one attack, he killed Adam. Kazanya looked at what happened with a shocked expression and was about to ask something. He grabbed her head and said that they are quite durable. He used his magic on her and she screamed loudly in pain. He stabbed her with his free hand and killed her. After that, he stopped using his magic, walked on and said that he was clearly calling him. He entered the office and Enoch said that as he thought, it was him. MC looked at him and asked who else could it be. He looked at him with a very serious expression and said that he should greet his precious guest with all due care. At the same time, on the street, Dirol dodged the magical attacks with a worried look. Lushina looked at him with a small smile and used her energy to attack. She created several large red snakes that attacked him from different directions. He continued to dodge and wondered where she came from and who she was. She is almost as strong as the seven heavens. There was no way he hadn't heard of someone that strong. Was there anyone in the Imperial Palace who could use blood magic at that level? Escaping from the Imperial Palace was a priority. He would waste some more time here and the nightly order would come pouring in. He released many magic waves with his magic and they hit her. He was surprised by what had happened and wondered if it was that easy. He turned around and continued to run away from the palace. He was very surprised and turned around when he heard her ask if he was going somewhere. Her body was recovering from his attacks and she said in a serious voice that she wasn't done yet. Immediately after that, she released many snakes towards him with the skill Requiem Sangria. He started using magic again and fought off her attacks. She continued to actively attack him with her energy, and he tried to block this attack. Dirol jumped to the side and thought that at this rate he wouldn't be able to deal with this red-eyed woman unless he took on his true form. The problem was that his demon energy would be released if he did that. If he took on his true form, everyone in the Imperial Palace would know about him. Lushina walked up to him very quickly and told him that if he doubted, he would die. At the same time, Enoch said that at first he thought he was just an annoying insect, someone who would not cause any trouble if he was simply left alone. However, if he did, his mere existence would continue to irritate him. However, at some point, he saw how he began to change. However, he didn't care. He decided that during the succession ceremony, he was just lucky and thought that Evelyn helped him deal with the Ghost Legion. He thought that the case with Regan was just a mistake, but now he sees clearly. He danced on the palm of his hand. He acknowledges him, so he uses all his strength to kill him here. After that, he began to release powerful energy. He thought that the direct descendants of Agnes possessed the power of the Star Sea. Before his succession ceremony, among his siblings, he was the worst at handling power. He could understand the superiority of Rubrio and Evelyn. They had mastered the Star Sea before him. However, when he saw that he had been surpassed by Udakan and Diana, he was forced to look the truth he had studiously ignored in the eye. He could no longer deny the obvious. 4 stars, that was all the Star Sea had given him. He immersed himself in the study of magic. Did he have any family ties to the Oslim family? He could easily reach the 8th circle. Having learned to combine this magic with the Star Sea and deduced his own unique method, he finally became famous as one of the monsters of the Agnes family. However, this was still not enough. This still did not guarantee him the throne. He was unable to develop the Star Sea further. His progress in magic was painfully slow. Then he came to him. Dirol said that he would promise him the throne if he did one thing for him. Enoch thought that he accepted his offer and made an underground laboratory for him. Here they conducted experiments and mixed species. He even encouraged it, because the results of the experiments contributed to the growth of his power. Currently, he emitted a powerful energy and said that he would kill him. Zion said with a small smile that he wanted to tell him the same thing. Immediately after that, he created armor from his magic. He got up from the table and thought that he didn't know what this was at all. He began to use magic and thought that as long as this power was different from the Star Sea, he didn't care. No matter what kind of power was contained in this darkness, he would suppress it. He released many streams of energy towards him. He calmly walked towards him, swung his sword, and used the skill Dark Flash. With this, he dispersed this energy and ran towards his opponent, swung his sword to attack. Enoch looked at him with a confident smile and asked, "Does he think attacking him head-on is a good idea?" He clenched his hand into a fist and trapped him in a magical trap. Immediately after, he created numerous magical arrows from different directions. The protagonist was not fazed by this and said that this was the most effective way. He released a pulse of energy and dispersed all of his magic. Immediately after, he slashed with his sword. The third prince pointed his hand at him, created a magic circle, and used the skill Impenetrable Thunder. He continued to use magic and thought that it was amazing that his brother, who was considered a disgrace to the family, had become like this, but it was still not enough. He used the skill Galaxy Stream and hit him really hard from above. With this attack, he knocked him down to the lower floor, went down to him and asked, "Is this all he can do? Why did he even think he could defeat him with such tricks? Was he really that stupid that he couldn't even appreciate his skill? Or had he gone crazy? He is such a skinny guy and will always be a nobody. He will kill him and tear apart anyone who dared to invade his palace. This is how it should have been from the start. MC asked him to wait and with a smile asked what made him think that this was all he could do. He didn't say that this was the end. Kronos, one of the ancient gods, asked humans 5 questions. One of them was, how does time flow? The answer could be found in the power that came from that question. Freezing time is the main one of the 5 questions Kronos asked. Time is made up of infinite separate moments, and freezing time allows a person to linger in one of them indefinitely. The Ghost Legion was created using time freezing. He showed him the bracelet and said that it just so happened that this thing was made for this very purpose. Enoch reached out to him and asked him loudly what he was doing. Gears appeared around them and he asked what he had done. Can't get enough air before he dies? He started using magic and thought that no matter what he used, he had no chance of winning. The gap was already too big. With his magic, he created many galactic copies that he sent at him. All these attacks flew at Zion, but he calmly walked on, and these attacks did not reach him. He ran up to him very quickly and grabbed his head. He dragged him very quickly along the corridor and slammed his back against the wall.
And that's the end of today's recap. If you enjoyed the story and want more episodes, make sure to hit the like button, comment your favorite moment, and let me know which manhwa you want next. Don't forget to subscribe with notifications on so you never miss the next video. See you in the next recap. Stay tuned.